Mind the gap.
Hello, Stephen. Could you do a quicker one?
Mind the gap.
Hello again. How about doing a funky one?
What does that even mean? Who the fuck are you, anyway?
Sorry, Stephen. Let me introduce Mayor of London, Boris Johnson. Maybe try a couple of the traditional readings again, where you emphasise the word mind and the word gap.
Yeah, all right. Are we rolling?
Hi, Stephen. This is Clem Fandango. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you, Clem Fandango.
So like the traditional delivery, Stephen, where you hit the word mind and the word gap.
Yeah, thanks for clearing that up, Clem.
All part of the service, Stephen.
Let's have some fun. Try an even longer gap between those words.
Mind the...
This is the emergency podcast system. This is not a test. Movies are bombing all over the country. They are posing as movies you already know. They may already be in your theaters, your neighbor's home, or even your own. Do not panic. Specialists have been dispatched. They will help you identify these pretenders and defend you against this invasion of the remake. Please stand by for further instructions. Welcome to the Invasion of the Remake podcast, and a very special episode where we're going to take a break from remaking something and comparing something. And we thought with the lockdown, and we're still recording remotely, maybe it's time to talk about what we've done while we've been at home and not recording this podcast, and what we've watched. And maybe in doing so, it'll reveal a little something about ourselves. Inevitably, I think it will. As you go through these weird degrees of, in a lot of ways, I think we've all gone through like the 5 stages of grief in one way or another, of just losing our freedom in some regards to make those sacrifices for the greater good, and the fear that comes with the virus. And then we're probably sitting around the acceptance part, since the world seems to be in a hurry to open up, and maybe in some cases a little too fast. Today, unfortunately, Sam is sitting at home, working from home, but he did send in a remote for us to pop in a little bit later. So we'll make some room for Sam at some point here, but we've got Trish Coughlin with us today.
Jason, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you, Clem Fandango. Anybody doesn't know what that is, we did open the show with that, and that's going to be part of one of my selections along the way, and it's become a meme on the show during this recording remotely. Anybody who's seen Toast of London knows what we're talking about. We'll get there. Yeah. And waiting in the wings there is Jeff Omega. Hey, Jeff.
I am here. Ooh, yeah, so I watched a lot of stuff. I'm watching a lot of stuff. Yeah.
I was initially, because I was still working, right? Like, yeah. When we got into the lockdown, I still could go to work to do curbside. For anybody who's asking, it's Words and Pictures. Check us out, wordsandpictures.com or wandp.ca. We got a new website up there, and that's when I got really freaking busy, where I was working from home and work constantly. After about 2 or 3 weeks, when we got that website developed, working constantly for, it's weird. You work 10 times harder for like a quarter of what you used to make. So I'm hoping levels will rise, but we were working really hard on getting that up and running. So that's when it kind of tapered, and then I started throwing TV shows in the background while I was doing data entry and whatnot. But that's what you'll start to hear, and in some cases even some audio podcasts, because you're not really paying attention to what you're watching, but you are paying a little more attention to what you're listening, so you can focus on the computer and the data entry that you're doing. So I may pop in a couple of podcasts in there as well as we talk about our selections today. Now, when this all started, I really kind of gravitated initially towards a lot of those movies that were moving to VOD and streaming right away, that were in the movies and kind of got caught in the closure and they needed something to do with. And we've got like Warner Brothers and Disney and these bigger movie production companies, and they're getting a backlog. And if anybody's wondering why they're dropping to VOD, is because there's a backlog of product, and eventually something's got to give. And in a lot of ways, with a lot of new streaming services, Disney Plus is still within their first year. HBO Max is just launching. They have an opportunity to put something big out and draw people in, possibly at a loss. Although, with people stuck at home, VOD is seeing a huge rise as well. Mm-hmm. So, something like the Trolls 2 animated film, it only did like maybe 20 million less than its predecessor on VOD without a theatrical. That's impressive. So, we could be seeing a model shift here as well. Time's only going to be able to tell, but I know there's an audience out there that's really starved to go back to the theater. And then there's guys like me who kind of tapped out a long time ago. I'm like, hey, I can sit in a seat that's clean at home and no gum on the floor and sticky pop and nobody kicking the back of my seat and that asshole won't shut up and the other one won't turn off his fucking phone. Maybe I'm just getting crotchety in my old age, but going to the theater kind of fucking sucks.
Yeah.
So, but at the same time, I miss the social experience of going to movies. It really didn't care what I was watching. It was the company I kept. So I certainly miss the social aspects of watching something with my friends. And maybe that's something we'll do while we're still isolating, is maybe we can do a remote watch with all of us. Yeah. But so I initially gravitated towards new. I wanted to see new. And then somewhere along the way, it was like, I'm going to tap out through this real fast. I'm like, I'm going to run out of new really quickly. And partially of that was the more I was seeing about COVID and the stats, I started to gravitate towards comfortable. And, the comfort food movies, the stuff you kind of like to return to, or television in that regard. And then partially it was a holdover as well. Like, Picard had just ended, and I was already kind of being drawn into watching the old Star Trek Next Generation reruns. So I've been working. That's a lot of episodes to work through. 7 seasons. Yeah. And with like 24 plus episodes a season on average. So 24 to 26, I do believe. So that's a lot of Star Trek to be watching. Yeah. And even in there, once like Deep Space Nine, I started sneaking in some of that once that kind of launched into the midst of Next Generation. And then I watched most of the Next Generation movies as well as the newer movies with the new cast as well. I threw those in there as well. So there was a lot of Star Trek in my life during lockdown.
Oh, I had a question too. Isn't it funny when you're going back in time to watch old things and you're like, oh my God, they used to do like 22 episodes a year, 24 episodes a year.
Yeah. I mean, personally, I think the model having shifted to what I call closer to the European format. We still have longer seasons than the UK, where it's like 6 to 8 or 6 to 12. And we're like, I think it's 10 to 13 on most of the streaming platforms. And some of them are a little less. And then I think most of the network television stuff, it's starting to shrink a little bit, but 22 is kind of on average. And I've always been of the mind, like, I think back to something like Buffy the Vampire Slayer, which I enjoyed, and I look at the seasons and I'm like, there were 2 or 3 really exceptional episodes and a whole lot of mediocre per season. Why make mediocre when, 3 great ones and 19 mediocre to crappy episodes? Why wouldn't you make like 10 consistently great episodes? So that's why I kind of used to gravitate towards UK shows a lot.
Yeah. Actually, in the HBO series Extras, with like Matt LeBlanc in it, playing like a version of himself, the whole premise of the series is that a British TV series is taken over to the US to be done. And they actually go through that whole bit where they're like, yeah, we did 6 episodes. And he's like, yeah, well, over here you're doing 22. So you've got to drag everything out to fill a season.
I don't know. It's always been a model that's I found strange.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so I did a lot of Star Trek early on. And one of the first movies I watched was the Bloodshot movie.
How was that?
Nice.
It was about what I was expecting out of it, because I'll be honest, like, I'm a comic book guy, Although I am getting fucking sick of superhero movies and superhero television. I am sick to death of it, and it hurts my business. And anybody who argues with me, it's like, yeah, you know what? You don't work the business like I do. And if you've got a superhero show any given night on television and every other month in the theaters, why the fuck does anybody need to read a comic book? Yeah, so it's hurting my business. Right. So I want them to go away, so it drives the people who like that genre back into the stores where this all birthed from. Anyway, that's my little gripe with that. But I'm also a huge Valiant fan, Valiant Comics fan, and anybody who maybe has seen my Facebook or my Twitter feed, I actually have a cover, original artwork cover of a Bloodshot issue hanging on my wall. I'm like, all right, Valiant movies. I'm down for that. And then when I heard Bloodshot was coming, I'm like, oh, that's going to be great. And then they cast Vin Diesel. I'm like, fuck. Well, fuck. And immediately, nothing's been shot yet. And I'm like, well, damn, that's going to suck. And not because I hate Vin Diesel. I mean, me and Trish have preached to the high heavens of how much we love Fast and Furious.
Yes.
So we love those movies.
Casting is important.
Casting is important. And this is a case of bad casting, the wrong guy. If you want something that's going to be a franchisable thing and have some longevity, well, one, Vin doesn't look like the character, and he's damn near 50. So you're not going to have longevity keeping that character forward as well. So I already had a problem right off the bat, and I knew it was going to be like, well, it's going to be a Vin vanity project, and something's going to change. And when I finally watched it, it's very much it's not terrible, but it's what I call the 90s action movie. Now, I don't know if I've mentioned on the show before, but I really tapped out on action movies in the 90s because they all felt the fucking same. And this was and not well written at all. And so this feels like what I feared and has been happening with superhero movies as a whole, even with the Marvel films. I mean, Marvel zombies can just calm the fuck down, but it's true, there's a formula and they're getting lazy with it. And this one, there's some unique stuff. There's a lot of repetition with the character because he's being programmed and he winds up reliving his life, but other people are cast as the same people in his life. So once he's done an assignment, they reprogram him, and then the target might change, but the story in his head's been programmed the same. His wife's face is changing. And so his whole life and all of his memories have been implanted, and they just kind of flip the script, which is kind of how I feel the genre is going as a whole. It's this weird, it's a kind of weird meta commentary on comic book movies in a large regard. So I don't know. I think once it hits streaming, as far as the freer streaming platforms like Netflix and Amazon, you can do worse in wasting an hour and a half, 2 hours of your life. But if you want just some dumbass fun, okay, Bloodshot's going to fill the void, but it's not great either. And this probably put a nail in the coffin as the Valiant universe in film, unfortunately.
And initiate sequence.
I'm home.
Memories are made of this.
What is this place?
I'm sorry to be the one to tell you this, but you got yourself killed. At RST, we rebuild the most important assets in the U.S. military. Soldiers like yourself. You're the first who we've successfully managed to bring back, but improved, enhanced. With the technology in your veins, you have an army inside you that will not only make you stronger, it will heal you instantly.
Holy shit.
Now tell me, do you remember anything?
Where are you going?
I've got unfinished business. I'm gonna find the man who murdered my wife and kill him.
Oh, that's not good. All right, shut him down. And initiate sequence. Okay, who is the next target for elimination?
Memories are made of this.
Tell me, do you remember anything.
Do I know you guys?
I don't think so.
They've been manipulating you.
What you think is real sometimes ain't. And initiate sequence.
Me forever.
Sure about that? Revenge is what makes a man like you exceptional.
You know nothing about men like me.
That is absolutely fantastic.
I feel like I just heard this. Are they playing this on repeat?
With the comic book shutdown, I'm a little worried about the Valiant company as well. So, I mean, it's certainly comic book companies are going to be suffering through all of this as well because printers were shut down and stores were shut down and supply chain was shut down as far as distribution goes. So we're going to see that landscape change as well.
I watched it too.
Okay, what did you think of Bloodshot?
If it hadn't been couched as a particular character, and they'd done a bunch of things different. Again, not Vin Diesel as being like the only focus of the entire movie. Mm-hmm. It could have been a decent flick.
It's not that familiar even to the people who are familiar with the comic books, because they wind up using the white and the blood shot on his chest, this blood symbol on his chest, as a special effect when his skin is white all the time in the comic books, and that thing on his chest doesn't go away. So, just basic stuff that it's like, well, this is kind of what we want to see. And you're not even going to give us that.
Oh. I know. It's Bloodshot, but I didn't even know it was supposed to be a character because it didn't feel at all.
This, in a lot of ways, this reminds me of the Dolph Lundgren Punisher movie. It could have been anybody. It had really very little to do with the Punisher character.
Yes.
It was a half-decent action movie, but it could have been anything and anybody, and they could have called it anybody but the Punisher or Frank Castle, and it would have been still a half-decent action movie, but we probably would have liked it better as a result because we don't have source material to reference and going, well, that's not right.
Yeah, it's like sometimes they have these scripts laying around, and they're like, let's just shoehorn it into a superhero movie, and it doesn't match.
Yeah. What did you start with, Jeff?
Ooh, well, I kind of listed everything alphabetically. So we kind of had a lot to go through, and it was kind of a lot to try to trudge through the memory banks to figure out.
Yeah, I was just trying to remember. I didn't do anything alphabetically or in any particular order because I was just, and even before this podcast, I was like, oh, right, I watched that too. Because I had listened to Sam's segment, and I'm like, oh, yeah, I did the same thing. So the stuff I just forgot about because this initially wasn't in our brains to do, but I think it's still an interesting idea to do. So just give me an idea where your headspace was when you started your lockdown, because I think you and Trish especially started a lot earlier than I did.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, well, basically, it was, I think, the week before April. So it was whatever the date was. Yeah, I think April 1st was a week later, so that would make that...
Okay, so you were fairly close to when I did mine as well.
Yeah, it was around March 20-something. We went into self-isolation. At the time, interestingly enough, we were actually watching a lot of movies, and we were really getting back into the habit of watching a lot of movies because I was working at a store where I had access to a lot of really good movies, so I was buying a lot and borrowing a lot, and we were just watching a lot. So when self-isolation happened, for the first little while, we kind of just continued doing that, except more so, if that makes any sense.
Mm-hmm.
Uh-huh. One thing that we actually did pretty much right off the bat is right before we went into self-isolation, I was able to buy the first 15 seasons of South Park for pretty cheap.
Oh, so God.
We watched through the first 15 seasons of South Park.
Actually, thinking about it, you probably could motor through a season a day, because they're like 10, 12 episodes a season at 20, 22 minutes.
Yeah. Well, the first couple seasons are fairly short, but then once it gets into it, I think there's maybe about 16 episodes a season.
Okay.
But you can watch a lot at once. And it was pretty cool because they're very topical and they're very on the pulse. So it was a little bit of a reminder of social events and important stuff and commentary on that.
It is interesting.
But in the context of now.
Yeah, it's very interesting, these long-running shows, especially like South Park and Simpsons, how much history those shows have actually seen now and are portraits of the past that continue to go today.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Especially because South Park, every episode, pretty much since it started, they basically make it over a course of 6 days. They meet on Monday. They decide what they want to make an episode about. They work for 6 days, and then they have a day off. Then they meet on Monday again. Then they do the next episode. And then that's how they do every season of South Park. And because it's such a short time span, they really have to edit, and they really have to, they can't really fuss with it too much. And they can also include things like a day beforehand if a big news event happens in a way that other shows like The Simpsons can't because they have a longer schedule.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So that's one thing that's fun. Anything that big that happens, there's a South Park episode that kind of has, talks about it and references it in some way.
Well, yeah, I mean, we're living through some crazy history now. It's part of my newer movies. As I hit them, I did Sonic the Hedgehog.
Oh, how was that?
Fantastic.
It's a pretty fun movie.
It really was fun. I mean, there's some stuff that I'm like, kind of rolled my eyes at, but these live action cartoons, especially video game things, kind of have that. But this might be one of the most enjoyable video game movies I've seen come down the pike since Detective Pikachu, which I double featured with Sonic the Hedgehog because I wanted to watch it again because I liked it that much. So just these fun, weird little family films, and I call them family films. They may be directed to kids, but they are completely enjoyable for adults as well. And if you haven't watched it yet, it's certainly worth going on VOD and doing Sonic the Hedgehog. And I think Detective Pikachu's on one of the streaming services now. I can't remember where I watched it, so... If not, it's still on VOD as well. So go check it out. A great family double feature if you have a family, or if you just want something fun and feel good at home. Watch those movies.
Okay.
They're so good.
Yes. Awesome.
You got any feel good movies that you watch there, Jeff?
Ooh, let's see. I'll go down my list a little bit. The first couple I have are not the lightest.
I'm guessing you probably did a lot of horror. Sam had a lot of horror too, because he exercised his free trial of Shudder on Amazon.
An early movie that we watched that was actually one of our favorite movies over the course that we discovered over the course of COVID was Earth Girls Are Easy.
Oh, yep.
Yeah, it's Gina Davis, Jeff Goldblum.
That's a oldie but a goodie.
Yeah, that was just on Tubi, and we'd never seen it before, and that was very, very fun.
Tubi's full of lots of little hidden treasures and forgotten classics. Like, that's a great one. I've even thought about using that one for the show and remaking it at some point.
With downtown Julie Brown.
That's right. Much music VJ.
Yes. So fun. And I think, isn't Damon Wayans in that?
Ooh, I can't remember.
I know it's one of the Wayans.
Yeah, it is Damon Wayans and Jim Carrey and
what's Jim Carrey in that?
Jeff Goldblum.
Oh,
yeah,
I know Jeff Goldblum was. It's been a long time since I've seen that movie.
So good.
It's so silly. It's great.
Anybody who doesn't have Tubi should go get it. Like, it's a free streaming service. There's a shit ton of stuff on there. I mean, if you like really bad movies, that's a really good place to go because, like, all of the Asylum movies are on there, all the Full Moon movies are on there, a good hunk of the Trauma movies are on there, but there's some really good stuff in there too. And for a free service, and all you have to do is actually sign up, and then it will remember what you're watching. Otherwise, if you don't want to give them your information, you can still watch it. It's absolutely free. TUBI. Go check it out. And I wish they were a sponsor.
But
if they're not making any money, neither are we.
Yeah.
And the ads aren't very intrusive. Way better than Crackle.
Yeah, Crackle was all the time, and sometimes you can get through an entire movie without seeing an ad, and other ones you'll get about every half hour or so.
It's not too bad.
Yeah, that's not horrible at all, and that's how they make their money is through ad revenue. So, I mean, if you're not paying for the service, go for it. There's a lot of good stuff on there.
Nice.
So, what else did you have there, Jeff?
Actually, another one of my favorite movies that we watched it's been on my list for a long time. This is one I had to get through Warner Archive, which is all print on demand, but it's The Hudsucker Proxy.
Nice.
That's written by Sam Raimi and the Coen brothers and directed by the Coen brothers.
It's baffling that's on Warner Archive because that's a really good movie.
Yeah, it's fantastic. Yeah, it's been on my list for a long time. I love Tim Robbins. Paul Newman is in it. It's a really, really fun script. Great set design. Yeah, I was really surprised that was on Warner Archive as well because it's a movie that more people should see for, big directors.
Well, that movie got quite a bit of critical buzz at the time. I don't know if it may have been more of a cult movie, but I'm not sure what the box office was like on that movie without having to do some more research. But I remember when I saw the trailer, I wanted to see it. I don't think I saw it until it hit VHS and whatnot. But it's great movie. I highly recommend it to anybody.
Yeah,
might be the best movie we talk about today. Although Sam rewatched Molly's Game, he'll mention that later. So that wasn't up for an Oscar.
It's really good.
Yeah, I love that movie. It is really good. Let's see. Yeah, once I kind of got out of like VOD mode, I went into comfort food mode and I wanted familiar, but I was leaning towards kind of fun horror, like that fun action-y horror.
Yes.
And I kind of defaulted to my favorite double feature, and I've mentioned it several times. Do you remember what it is, Trish?
Oh my God. It's the one. I can see them both in my head. There's one with Ben Affleck. Isn't he a sheriff?
Yeah.
There's McGowan. I cannot remember the name of it.
That would be Phantoms.
Phantoms, and then there's a ship.
Yeah.
With Jamie Lee Curtis.
No.
And Treat Williams.
No. Treat. Yes, not Jamie Lee Curtis. Famke Janssen.
Okay, Treat Williams.
Famke Janssen.
Famke Janssen.
Yeah.
Oh, and I can't remember the name of that, but I know which one he.
Yeah. So yeah, I went towards Phantoms and Deep Rising.
That's it. Deep Rising. I was going to say Ghost Ship, but I'm like, no, that's a different one.
And I thought about it. I'm like, maybe I like it because there's similar themes of that monster from down below attacking those that live above. So one on land and one on the water, but very similar story-wise. Well, Phantoms is a little more dark and Cthulhu-esque of this creature that gains sentience and thinks it's a god, and all man should praise it and be thankful when it doesn't eat them.
Right?
It's dark, but there's something like I really enjoy the adventure of it all, and there's a tone to it that has a bit of silly. And then when you watch Deep Rising, it's Stephen Sommers. He just takes it and runs with it, and it's kind of harkens back to old Universal monster movies, and especially when you listen to that soundtrack, it feels like a classic Universal Monsters thing.
Out in the ocean, there's that isolation that really helps ratchet it up, which I love.
Yeah. Now I'm going to give our audience the treat about the double feature I really love by giving them the double feature in trailer form. Here it is, Phantoms and Deep Rising.
Last night, something paid a visit to the town of Snowfield, Colorado.
Hundreds of thousands missing. No bodies, no graves, no witnesses.
We've always worried that the terror would come from above. What if it came from below?
It's nothing.
It's here! It's everywhere, all around us!
What are we dealing with here? Biological, chemical, or other?
I'm leaning toward other.
Welcome to the greatest pleasure ship ever built. Good times forever! I have something here, sir. I've never seen anything like this.
It's a malfunction, sir.
That's impossible. Where are they coming from?
I don't know, sir, but whatever it is, it's, big.
They answered a distress call.
Where the hell is everybody?
Now,
What the hell was that?
they're dead in the water.
I got a really bad feeling about this.
The ship's infested. Let's get the hell out of here!
What the hell is that? The girl from Ipanema.
I don't mean to sound like a wuss, but this is starting to freak me out, man.
I vote we leave. Who votes we leave?
Deep Rising.
All right, you got the truncated version, but try it. Try it. Let us know.
It's really good.
Yeah.
I've done it.
I want to know what other people's favorite movies to double feature are. I'd like to see what their pairings are. So send it to us on our social media at Invasion Remake on Twitter, Invasion the Remake on Facebook and Instagram. So yeah, let us know. I've always wanted to know what our audience and even yours, our hosts here as well. I'd like to know what their favorite double features are, or if they had one during this COVID lockdown. Did you do a double feature of any sort there, Trish?
Oh, I did. I went through a bit of a Dolph Lundgren phase because I was like, I just want something trashy. And I'm like, who can do this trashy action? Who can do this for me? Oh, I know, Dolph Lundgren. And I watched Kindergarten Cop 2 with Dolph Lundgren.
I was about to say, I'm like, he was in Kindergarten Cop. I'm like, there's a 2?
He was in 2.
There's a 2?
There is a 2.
Was this recently?
He's looking a little older, so it's somewhat recent.
I think it was like 2-3 years ago.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, I'm going to have to track that down. That sounds amazing. Already. Just Dolph Lundgren and Kindergarten Cop 2, I'm there.
Yeah. It's very different, and it's yeah.
Well, I'm wondering if it maintains. There's a certain kind of darkness at the beginning of Kindergarten Cop, the original one. Like, it really feels like a really dark action movie from Schwarzenegger before it moves into childcare.
True.
It has such a drastic tonal shift, like, because he's blowing people away, and suddenly it's like turns into a family film. Like, whoa, what a weird film.
It is, but it's sort of like there's a bit of it too, where you know how in the original Arnold Schwarzenegger, he doesn't know how to talk to kids, but he never gets really dark with it. Mm-hmm. Whereas Dolph Lundgren really doesn't know how to talk to kids. Like he's saying very inappropriate shit.
Nice.
He's kind of just this whole people like I'm trying to think off the top of my head because it was a while since I watched it, but like sort of stuff like man up, people die, like just weird ass crap.
Yes, that's what you want to tell a 6-year-old.
Right?
Oh, that does sound fun. And what was the other Dolph Lundgren
And I'm
movie?
trying to think of which one it is because it was one of those like it was in Tubi or something like that. There's a couple of ones. There's one he did with Jean-Claude Van Damme and him are both in it.
They partnered up a lot. Universal Soldier comes to mind.
Yeah. Well, no, this one was recent. Oh. They're both older.
It might have been one of the Universal Soldier movies. I think that they teamed up.
No, this one
5 years ago.
They're in some sort of prison and they don't know why. Like they've been there for like a long time and it's like some super jail.
Okay.
Like Dolph Lundgren doesn't have a huge part in it. It's more Jean-Claude Van Damme, and then like Jean-Claude Van Damme breaks out. It's unmemorable, but it's like a nice bit of fluff.
This sounds like Escape Plan, but the bargain basement version.
And then there was like another one. Actually, it's more than a triple feature. I did another one. I think it's called The Tracker, where he's getting revenge. It's that family revenge type of deal.
And these are all like the Lundgren movies I didn't know existed. He's been busy.
Oh yeah, like if you look at his IMDb, he's doing like 3 a year of like low level crap. Like, sorry, I don't mean he's doing stuff. He's doing great work in these movies. Like, I'm not disappointed that I'm watching Dolph Lundgren.
I always liked these like direct-to-video action movies back when such a thing existed, and that's kind of where Jean-Claude, that was his milieu, right? These lower-level action heroes, and I'm glad they still make stuff like that.
I went through a whole phase, too. There's another one, too, where he's like an Interpol agent, and it's like he's trying to get his family out of this place because this group is trying to get this gold that this guy has, but like there's like 2 keys. There's some high level plots that he's involved in with some of these ones that are actually, if you threw some money at it, I could see it going somewhere.
Cool. Well, Tubi's turning out to be full of hidden treasures. Jeff, do you have any, well, I'm guessing with the amount of content you watched, do you have any special double features or even marathon days that really panned out for you?
Well, so other than, the Lord of the Rings extended trilogy we did in one day.
Good God Almighty. So you did the extended. So you were up.
Other than
that's 12.
Planet of the Apes, all Planet of the Apes movies in one day.
Oh Jesus, that's 6. Okay.
That's
wow.
So other than those,
so did the Planet of the Apes one happen because we did the episode?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, I just watched the first one, and then we just watched the rest of them.
Right.
There was one that was like a fun accidental triple feature, although it ended on a very depressing note. But
oh no,
we watched That Thing You Do, the director's cut, and I'd seen That Thing You Do before, but I didn't know that there was a director's cut.
Oh,
yeah, I didn't realize that either.
It's really, really good. Like, I liked the movie before, but I would say that it's an excellent movie with, like, the director's cut. It adds about a half an hour of like extra stuff that is all really, really solid. It basically is like a good through line of the movie that ends in a very satisfying payoff at the end.
Hey, that's a movie I don't mind spending more time with, so I'm gonna have to track that down.
Yeah, really, really good. If you like the movie, it's worth checking out. And on a strange turn of events, we actually watched it like on the day that the guy who wrote the song for That Thing You Do, he died the day that we watched it, strangely.
Oh, man.
Of COVID, which was very sad.
Oh, yes.
Oh, wow. Oh, my God.
And he was a major contributor to Crazy Ex-Girlfriend.
Yeah.
And you didn't know that at the time when you watched it, though, did you?
No.
Wow. That's that's kind of creepy synchronicity there.
Yeah. Yeah, very strange. So after that, we followed that up with Pleasantville, which I'd never seen before. And that was
John Goodman, right?
No, it's with Tobey Maguire.
With what?
It's with Tobey Maguire and
Reese Witherspoon.
Reese Witherspoon.
Not the one movie I'm thinking of.
Yeah, I
have seen it though. I know I've seen it. And I've seen it several times actually.
Yeah,
it's the black and white movie that goes color.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's really good. There's a Jim Carrey one that it kind of reminds me of too. But yeah, Pleasantville's excellent movie.
And that kind of thematically was a good double feature with That Thing You Do.
Mm-hmm.
And then we tied it all around with Autofocus, which was really good. And actually was great contrast to That Thing You Do, because they're both about drummers. They're both similar time period. There's all of these weird synchronicities, like Tom Hanks' wife is in both.
But Autofocus has a major tonal shift from the first two.
Oh yeah. It's great though because it's very subtle. It starts off very light, and then it's just a slow decline until it's very depressing at the end. But very, very good. That was a good day of watching movies, but ended on a bit of a downer note.
Oh, I mean, they're all excellent movies. So, man, you hit some really great ones, like Hudsucker Proxy's in there too. So, I'm eager to hear more. Well, what else you got? Well,
here, you know what?
Feed me more.
I'll start at the top of my list and I'll work down. So, I have 13 Game of Death, which I highly recommend. That's a Thai movie, I believe.
13's like a movie series, isn't it?
I don't know if it's a series.
Or maybe, because I know it's been remade in English as just 13, right?
I think so. 13 Sins, I think, is the remake.
Oh, that was it. 13 Sins.
Yeah. We should do an episode about it. They're both it's worth talking about. Very interesting movie. April Fool's Day. I watched that on a live stream with a friend, and it was actually pretty fun.
Which one?
We found a way to make it work.
Which one?
The original one.
Yeah.
From the 80s.
We covered that on the show pre Jeff Omega. Actually, post Jeff Omega, because you were in one of our earliest episodes. But yeah, we had done that one for and around April 1st for the podcast, and we adore. I don't know. I adore the first one.
Yeah, it was fun.
Yeah, and I think Trish does too. If memory serves. Yeah. Most of us didn't have much good to say about the sequel. I didn't hate it as much as Trish did. There's some arguments. Go listen to that episode.
Yep.
But I can tell you, I'll rewatch the original over and over again. I probably will never go back to the remake. So.
Yeah. I've let go of that anger.
Okay.
I can't keep hold of that now.
Okay, good.
I'm still upset, but I've let go of the anger associated with it.
Okay, good.
All right, next we got Antichrist by Lars von Trier.
Oh, good God. Did you need a shower after that one?
It was a very, very interesting movie. It was very, very beautifully shot and has a lot of interesting imagery.
He's a hell of a filmmaker, but he's also a disturbing one. There's something wrong with that man.
It was very interesting to see in the end credits. There was like people who had credits for like, researching the history of feminism or the history of like symbolism regarding the phallus, or various research departments were attached to the film credits, which I thought was very interesting and a little eye-opening.
Well, at least something remained attached.
Oh.
But bump.
Yeah.
Really, guys, if you're squeamish, don't watch that fucking movie. It is a great movie that I recommend to no one. I mean, you don't come across those very often. I mean, we've come across those occasionally on 31 Days of Horror, where it's like, this is an amazing movie, no one should watch this. Yeah. You watch something, they're like, who made this fucking movie? That is one of those movies.
Yeah. To me, it's one of the ones I put it up. I've never watched The Human Centipede, and I'm glad that I know enough I don't want to watch it. So with this one, I will tell people enough about it so that maybe they don't. It's great to watch, but just like you should know about it, but I don't know if you need to go through it.
I would say The Human Centipede is like the great modern mad scientist movie. None of its sequels.
The first one is actually quite watchable, but you don't need to travel down that road more than once.
Yeah.
You don't need to see the next segment. Haha.
Yeah. Continue down your list there. Well, they all seem to be connected anally. So
this one might be divisive, but I wasn't a big fan of Audition.
Ooh, very interesting. Sam went down that path too. It's a wild ride, that one.
Yeah, it was one where I feel like basically the spot had been blown for me by anyone who told me about the movie. Like everyone was like, "Man, this movie's so gnarly. There's all this stuff."
The problem is once you know what the hook is at the end, it's hard to enjoy because you're expecting it. I mean, it goes through a complete tonal shift. But for anybody listening, it's a romantic comedy. You'll enjoy it. Don't worry about it.
Yeah, it's great.
It's great.
Yeah, I'd say the less you know about it, the better. If you know nothing about it, it's worth going into and watching. But it's one where if you know a little bit about it, it actually really taints your view of the movie.
Mm-hmm. I've known the hook for years, so I've never bothered to sit through the whole thing. I know it's a great movie. I know the people who were involved in it. And I'm like, oh, of course this is going to be a good movie. I even recommended it to Sam without actually having seen the movie because I knew what the hook was, and it'd been spoiled for me. So I don't want to do that for everybody else. So continue down your list, your alphabetical list.
This next one is actually one of my favorite ones that we watched during COVID. I would love to do an episode about it. It is Bad Ronald. Great. It's a fun title, but I had to get it through Warner Archive on demand. But it's basically about a teenager who's very close with his mom. He accidentally kills a girl, and in order to cover it up, she builds a basically segment in her house for him to hide in so the police don't find him. But she dies, and then a family moves in with young daughters, but he lives in the house and has been self-sustaining for years. And it's very creepy, and it's a really, really good movie.
I think it's actually moved over to Shudder recently, because I've actually heard of this movie very recently.
Cool. Yeah, watch it if you can. It's very good.
Cool. Why don't you motor down the list a little bit further, and then we'll switch off here.
Here, I'll motor down through some next bits with some quick comments. I got Basketball. Very funny. Early Trey Parker, Matt Stone. If you like South Park, it's pretty good. We watched the animated The Batman versus Dracula, which was all right.
Okay, yeah. I actually, that's probably one of my favorites out of that series, even though it was a side thing from the series. It was quite good.
Very gothic. I liked the gothicness of it.
Yeah, I did too.
Well, we watched Bedknobs and Broomsticks, which there's an episode about.
Yep.
Yep.
Yeah, you can get all of our thoughts by going to listen to that episode as we remade that one. Mm-hmm. But what did you think of it?
I liked it. I liked it a lot. Angela Lansbury is very charming. Yeah. All in all, it's a very fun movie.
Yeah, as far as an animated family musical, it kind of hits in all the little notes that you would like from a Disney movie.
Yeah, much better than Mary Poppins, I think.
Yeah, I'm a bigger fan of Bedknobs and Broomsticks myself, so I'm not going to argue with that.
I think it had more potential. I think there's more that could have been done, but yeah, it's still pretty good.
Yeah. You know what? The next one I was really surprised by, and I really liked it, was Between Two Ferns, the movie on Netflix.
Oh, man.
Yeah. Have you guys seen it?
No.
No, but I know Between Two Ferns. I didn't know the movie.
So Scott Aukerman, who, me and Amelia watched all of Mr. Show because there was a Mr. Show live stream event for charity that we watched.
Oh, nice.
So we watched all of Mr. Show, which we'd seen before, and with Bob and David, which we'd seen before. And this was the first time that we noticed that Scott Aukerman shows up around season 4, and he starts getting writing credits. And we watched Run, Ronnie, Run, which is basically Mr. Show, the movie. Yeah, it's like the Ronnie Dobbs movie based off of the sketch from season 1. But Scott Aukerman, who does comedy Bang Bang anyway, he was involved with Mr. Show. He was in the live stream, and he told people to check out Between Two Ferns, the movie. That's because he wrote and directed it, and it's very funny. I highly recommend it.
Nice.
I'll check it out. Get to the bottom of your C's here, and then we'll do some.
All right, sounds good. So we got The Boston Strangler. Strange movie. It's based on The Boston Strangler. It came out while The Boston Strangler was still uncut.
Yeah, wasn't that a 70s movie?
Yeah, it's a fictitious movie about the Boston Strangler, but featuring, I think, the real victims' names.
Oh, wow.
It's very tasteless.
Yeah, exploitive.
Yep.
But that happened a lot in the 70s.
Yeah. Watched Cats Don't Dance, which was very, very fun. Animated movie.
Oh, I don't remember that one.
Dance.
Yeah, I don't know.
I've not heard of it.
Yeah, basically, in the small amount of research, that's another one I watched through Warner Archive. An animation studio opened up, put all of their work into this movie, but they ran out of money before it could come out, and then they were absorbed by Warner Brothers Animation. Then they went on to work for Warner Brothers. But this is like their one vision as a studio of, their contribution to animation. And it's pretty fun. It's like a Hollywood musical, but an animated movie with cats.
Cool.
Wow.
Well, it's probably better than the live action, slightly animated version of Cats.
Oof. Yep. Next one we got Charlie Varick. Highly recommended. It's by the director to Dirty Harry. Stars Walter Matthau. And it's incredible. It's just one of the best heist movies.
I don't think I've ever seen it, but I know my dad loved that movie.
Yeah, it's a great heist movie. Just check it out. Don't look it up. Just check it out. Next, I watched Commando for the first time, actually.
Oh, no. It's a very memorable, terrible movie.
I love it. It's just so fun.
Steam, Bennett.
It is everything you'd want out of that exact type of action movie.
All the Schwarzenegger cliches of the one-liners and just bad acting. And it really is. This is a movie of one-liners that was written that way.
Yeah.
It's actually scripted by comic book writer Jeff Loeb, who would go on to front Marvel Television before they recently closed it down. And he should be embarrassed by that movie, but at the same time, it is fantastically bad and an amazing watch nonetheless. And if you're anybody like a Schwarzenegger fan like I am, you start with Commando and you work your way through.
It's the first Arnold Schwarzenegger movie after Conan the Barbarian and Destroyer and Red Sonja, so it's his first non-barbarian movie.
Yeah, it was the first movie I saw him with short hair.
Yeah.
Yep.
That's one of his prime shape movies as well too. It doesn't look. He was still young enough. It still works.
Oh yeah, no, he's a tank in that movie.
And remember what I'd said? Can you laugh, Sully? I die.
So good. Yeah, I loved that movie.
Yeah.
And bottom of my C list.
She's great in it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and bottom of my C list is Cure, which is by the other Kurosawa, not Akira Kurosawa. The other one. I can't remember his first name.
The one nobody knows about.
Yeah, it was all right. A lot of people say that he's like, one of these Japanese visionary horror directors, but a part of me wonders if it's just because it's a Japanese horror movie people have seen. It's okay. Mm-hmm. The main character was very annoying, but
I was like, when you talk about the other Kurosawa that you don't know, I just had flashed in Back to the Future. It's your cousin Marvin, a Kurosawa. You know that sound you're looking for?
Yeah.
Sorry, that just came in there. I had to share
it. Nice. Well, let's switch back to some of our stuff. Like I said, I kept kind of with comfort food stuff for the most part. And I went through a brief kind of older film thing. I watched The Lost Boys again because I'd been wanting to watch it for a while. And somewhere along the way, I tuned out because it's a movie I'm very familiar with. So it wound up becoming a background watch. And then I thought, I don't know, I had listened to a full audio Aliens thing on Audible. It was like 4.5 hours long with a full cast. It was fabulous. Go, if you have an Audible subscription, you haven't listened to those yet, fucking listen to those Aliens full cast ones. They are so good. Anyway,
wow.
They have X-Files ones too.
Yeah, I haven't listened.
Really
I haven't listened to those yet, but that will probably be next at some point because that's got all the major cast people involved. Which actually, maybe I'll skip since you brought it up. I actually watched. I had remembered I had tried to watch that event series when it came back and revived. But I just had tuned it out. I wasn't in the mood for it, so nothing was in my head. I couldn't remember any of it. So I'm like, and I did this just recently, like last weekend.
Nice.
And, no, it wasn't last weekend. It was just a few days ago because my internet was knocked out for almost 2.5 days because somebody was digging where they shouldn't supposed to. So I just went upstairs and I'm like, well, time to dive in the library. And I'm like, I have this X-Files box set that it was still in the shrink wrap, and I'm like, I haven't seen the event series yet. So I pulled that out, watched it all one day, a mix of some of the stuff I hated about X-Files with the aliens and the conspiracy stuff, and a mix of some of the better stuff where they had the one-offs in the middle. I mean, it was only 6 episodes. Nice. There's a really funny one with the Lizard Man was probably my favorite.
It's so good.
Yeah. I also hopped on my phone because I'm in a bad habit of researching everything I watch now because of this goddamn show we're recording. And I realized there's a season after that. I'm like, well, fuck, I don't own that one. So I'm going to have to go track it down because it's on my brain now. Like,
we just watched it. It was on. I can't remember which it was because we were able to watch most of the last season on a streaming service, and then it was gone somewhere, and I can't remember which one. But we have season 10, just watched most of the last of season 11, and luckily a friend came through with us, and we were able to finish it.
Nice.
Season 11 is really good. It's a little bit longer than season 10.
I saw it was 10 episodes, which I didn't even know it existed. Until I did my research, I'm like, well, good, because that season 10 ended on a cliffhanger. So, and there are 2 years between them. For me now, it's like 4, but. I'm glad it exists, because I'm still want to go that, and that's kind of where my headspace was at a lot of the times. I can't see my friends, I can't see my family, but I could see my old friends of television and the people that really entertained me and are part of my life as far as television goes and film goes. Mm-hmm. That familiarity that was like a warm blanket through all of this for me. So X-Files was certainly one of them. And then I thought, I need to give, because of the aliens, going back to that, I wanted to give the Alien Predator movies another shot, specifically because I hadn't seen Requiem. I'm like, I remember the first one not being great, but at least entertaining. And in a way that actually prompted my watching Phantoms and Deep Rising, because I think it was Stephen Sommers who did the first AVP. Tonally, a lot of those movies are the same, and it was just this kind of. I have my complaints about both those movies hit both sides of the spectrum, where the first AVP was shooting for PG-13, so the violence and the R rating kind of affected the movie in a way, and it seemed too much in the light and too polished to be scary, so it became more of an adventure action movie for me. It's still an entertaining movie to watch. And then you watch Requiem, which does pull some of the plot from that last one by having that alien predator hybrid. It really doesn't show up till the end of the movie, but they do set it up. But that movie, like, even after I watch it, I can barely remember, because it's, as the first one is almost too well lit and too polished. The other one's so fucking dark, you almost have to turn on up your contrast on your television to see anything. Like, I had to close all my blinds and find that perfect spot. And I'm like, is there anything even in this scene? It is so fucking dark. You can't fucking see anything. And maybe that was just a cover up, like the special effects, because they were trying to make the budget less. And it's unrelentingly dark tonally too, because characters that are introduced, you think it'd be main cast, but it's in a way is a lot like Walking Dead, where there's a lot of sprawling cast of people being affected by the aliens that are spreading out from the crash. So it becomes very much a survival horror movie, and sometimes you're bouncing back and forth, and you can go quite a bit of time, and you're like, oh yeah, I forgot to go with these people, and consequently you don't care about anybody, and the ones you do care about shockingly die out of nowhere. Like, it's something's not happening, and the next thing you know, they're impaled to a wall. So and it's a very interesting movie to watch, but probably out of Aliens and Predator, the least memorable of any of them, in my mind, and one of the worst. It's formulaic, but not because of the plot, really. I mean, I might have enjoyed that movie better if I could have seen it.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that was my brief stint into Aliens Predator, and I thought it would lead to more, but it just turned me off the entire franchise for a little bit. I'll eventually go back to the ones that are good. But that was it for me. I'm like, I'll go listen to the other two audibles later.
There you go.
I think there are 3 full cast ones on there, and then they have some audiobooks of some of the other ones. That was the Aliens Predator one. I tried to revisit Bad Boys, because Bad Boys for Life, the third movie.
Yeah.
But it's for life. I'm like, talk about a missed opportunity, assholes. But I saw that the first 2 were on Netflix. I'm like, oh, maybe before I watch that, I'll revisit the franchise. And then I realized, I fucking hate these movies. I really fucking hate these movies. I don't like the first one. I don't really like the second one. I'm like, I tapped out after the first one. I'm like, yeah, I don't need to revisit these. These suck. I've never liked these. Why did I want to watch this again? It was very frustrating. Hope. And well, that was the same reason I revisited the AVPs. Like, yeah, I have different eyes now. Maybe I'll enjoy these more. Nope.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. That was my exact experience watching Alien vs. Predator last time.
Did you have any watches like that, Jeff, on your list? That just like, maybe I should give this another chance.
Actually, you know what? One that was very interesting is, you were talking about revisiting shows that are comfortable and, with characters that you're familiar with. And we rewatched all of Big Train, which is a very, very good British comedy.
Yes.
You were able to find it. It was $10 on Amazon for the complete series. The price fluctuates, and you can catch it pretty low sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Because otherwise it seems like it's relatively hard to find. But Simon Pegg is in that, and that spurred us to rewatch all of Spaced, which was one of my favorite shows as a teenager. But rewatching it now, we are the ages of the characters in the show, and there's a lot of stuff that we're kind of maybe feeling or noticing for the first time in ways that you really could only if you were the ages of the characters. And that's been really cool.
Well, that show always resonated with me because specifically I am their age. So I've aged with them. I am very much the same age as Simon Pegg. Yeah. So watching that show is like, oh, well, these guys in the UK, they're just like me. They're nerds like me who like comic books and video games and horror movies. Like, I would love to work with these guys in some film capacity at some point, because it would just be like playing for a couple of months making that movie or that series even. So
yeah, it's so good. I actually think that it might even be my favorite work out of Edgar Wright. I mean, even though I love all of his movies, that whole series is just so whole as a unit, and it works so well on an emotional level. And it's really that combination between him and Simon Pegg and Jessica Stevenson, who's now Jessica Hines.
Yeah, and there's Mark Heap, who was in it. He was also in Big Train with them.
Yeah, he's so good as Brian.
Oh, going back to that intro I did, I had my own UK series I watched during lockdown, which was Toast of London.
Yeah.
Which I know everybody here today has seen that series. It's become a meme for us on the show where there's this bit where Stephen Toast, who's doing voiceovers in a studio, and there's these two dicks are just like fucking with them through the booth. So specifically Clem Fandango, and the actor whose name I can't remember, but he's actually on Star Trek Discovery now, so it looks very different than Clem Fandango, but. And I hated those two, like Clem Fandango and the ginger dude with the mustache. Like these just over-the-top millennials that you just want to punch in the face.
Yeah. Well, and they're just like, to me, it's not so much millennials. They're just these insufferable hipsters.
Yeah.
Who think they're too cool for anything.
Yeah.
It's very frustrating.
But that was a fun ride to go through that series, and I'm always on the lookout for some. There's something. I'm not a big comedy guy, but I like British comedies. I'm actually rewatching Black Books right now on Amazon. Again, this might be my third go around through Black Books, and I've watched IT Crowd more times than I can count now.
Well, then I have a recommendation for you because, and I've started this on CBC Gem. It's called Brassic. And it's like a Northern England sitcom, but it's like they're a group of guys, and they're basically just criminals. And the one leader, Joseph Gilgun, plays like the lead guy in it. Once you see him, you'll know who I'm talking about. And he's got bipolar and depression. Like he's got like kind of a dark history, and it's like him and his buddies doing these heists. And there's also an overarching story with like the big bad in it called like Terrence McCann. And it's funny, and it's heartfelt, and it's interesting, and it's really good. I loved it. And they've got a second series, and it's just, there's so much there. Like, it's really cool because they have their one friend. He's from a traveler family, but he's gay. But like nobody ever mentions it. Like the guys are like absolutely fine with it. Like at one point he's like, I can't go to rob this place. I've got a date. And he shows a picture of the guy, and Joseph, like the other guy's like, ooh, handsome. Like it's just, and they've totally tossed on the head like these rural yobs. Like people would think like, oh yeah, they're unsophisticated and all this other stuff, but there's all these hints, like they're very well read at certain points. Like they accidentally steal a lion. And he's like, somebody's like, well, we have to get it back to the jungle. He's like, lions don't live in the fucking jungle. Like they know so many things.
According to those old Tarzan movies, they do.
Right? But these guys know that's not right.
Yeah.
Like it's just so, it's really well done. And I have to say, like, it's on CBC Gem, and you can watch the whole first season free. It's really good.
Yeah, and I think you can get some of that stuff on Amazon through like the Amazon channels, or maybe Apple
Brassic
Plus as well.
Yeah, Brassic is definitely you can stream it. I can't remember which one it was.
Okay,
but season 2 is out. It's really good, and so I don't know what's going to happen in season 3, but season 2 left me on tenterhooks, and I'm like, God, what's going to happen? Like, I need to know. I love these characters. They're all really, really good.
Right. What else did I blow through? I blew through Brooklyn Nine-Nine once the new season, last season hit Netflix because I don't have cable, so I'm the season behind everybody, but I blew through that in a few days. So, again, characters you're familiar with and are comforting, so I had some fun. I did wind up going through a bit of a dark turn, and I'm still in it. And this might be my more acceptance phase that I'm in currently. Is
Empire Strikes Back?
No, yeah, maybe. I decided to. I got zombied out a few years ago. Where I used to say zombies are like bacon. You can't have enough zombies. Everything's better with bacon, and everything's better with zombies. Then it became like the trend, and it's like, oh no, you can have too much bacon. You can't have too much zombies. So I had tapped out on Walking Dead around season 4. Even the comic books I kind of like go back to periodically. Like I still don't know who Negan is, but I'm getting there because I did pick up the show again, and so I've been watching Walking Dead, and that was kind of spawned by watching Zombieland Double Tap on Amazon. I'm like, I really enjoyed that. So I want more zombies, and then started watching that. I also blew through the second season of The Purge on Amazon as well, so I enjoyed it way more than the first season, actually. I'm hoping another season will happen to that, but I don't know. These movies that turn into TV event series, I think they only have like short legs to begin with. We might get 2-3 seasons out of anything that is of that nature. Yeah. But I got lots of Walking Dead to watch because I think it's up to season 9 on Netflix, and I have Fear the Walking Dead. I've been kind of, I think I'm a season and a half into that on Amazon Prime. So Netflix has got one and Prime's got the other ones.
What's Fear again? Is that just like another group of
Fear? It is, yeah, but it starts at the outbreak of the plague. So it follows this family during the outbreak in the very early days. So it's like the hints of it on television and whatnot, to the city that they're in being isolated, to fleeing the town and it becomes starting a little more familiar as you go along. But I had to ask some questions because, again, I research things and I spoil things for myself because I do that. So I noticed almost the entire cast disappears, and I haven't got there yet, but it's like, wait a minute, there's only the daughter left by like the 5th season. So like, how do you lose your primary cast on this show? Like, how badly did this show go? So I'm a little concerned of where it's headed, because if you're dumping your entire cast and recasting, that tells me some rocky waters are ahead with me for that show for me.
I do know that at one point AMC said that, why can't Walking Dead be the first show to get 50 seasons?
Well, I mean, the comic was always conceived of the George Romero movie that never ended. But even Kirkman put a close to the story, so just last year. So at the end of it all, that show could be the show that keeps going with a revolving cast and what. It certainly could. It's basically a primetime soap in that regard. But ratings will dictate everything. I mean, Simpsons is the only one who's going to get close to it right now. Yeah. The Simpsons is leading everybody. But, I mean, think about it. Walking Dead's 10 seasons in. My comic collectors, do you think it's going to affect the value? I'm like, no, it's 10 seasons. It's public consciousness now. It is part of... everybody's consciousness of television, and it is a famous TV series and will always be that now, because no show goes that long without it being ingrained into people. So that's not something at least collectors need to worry about. It's also consistently inconsistent as a show, so who knows? But as long as people just want their fix, I mean, viewers are habit forming as well. So once they've lost the actor for Rick, he's going to be getting a movie, so he's not leading the show anymore. And I mean, I think the actress who's playing Michonne has said she wants to go. So if you lose Daryl, that show's fucked.
Yeah. I didn't mind Walking Dead, but I guess my frustration is like when I tapped out was when I realized I could basically watch an entire season by watching the first 15 minutes and the last 10 and not miss anything.
Yeah. You probably could. I mean, watching it the way I'm watching it, I don't seem to have the same frustrations that it seemed like a lot of the people I work with or my customer base, like they had a week or those big breaks between sweeps week, and then you have that big break before the shows come back out during repeat season. So people had time to stew on it. And the thing for me, like, zombies honestly are inherently boring. I mean, you want the sieges and you want the threat on the characters, but it's the characters that keep you coming back because you give a shit about them. So I don't mind a slow episode as long as it's going somewhere. Sometimes they do, sometimes they don't. But, I've watched a couple of seasons now, or I watched through season 5 entirely, and I'm almost at the end of season 6 now. So I know I'm getting close to Negan and everybody getting their faces bashed in by a baseball bat with barbed wire on it. Yeah, I know who he is.
Well, for me, it's just my frustration of like the script writing where you pack all the action into like the beginning and the end.
And it does feel like that. I
stopped caring.
Yeah, there was when I came in back in season 5, and there's this big build up with these Hannibal characters, I think they were. Mm-hmm. Oh. And they just go in, like Rick's group goes in and spanks them, and it's done. It's like, well, whoa, that drama went nowhere. Yeah. It's like you figured there's gonna be a big conflict, and nope, they spanked them, and that was it. We're moving on to Alexandria.
I feel like Walking Dead is a show that's almost better. It's better written mid-season to mid-season than it is season to season, because the mid-season finales always have a bigger payoff than the season finales.
Yeah, you always have a good season opener, and then a good closing to mid-season, and then a good start to the later season, which is going to be the better season, the later half of the season. It seems to be a weird pattern there, and I think the disjointed nature of the show is a result of not having one voice of a showrunner, because I think that they dumped showrunners around season 3. Mm-hmm. So it's a bit weird. Although I think one of the guiding voices, thankfully, is Greg Nicotero. That's at least comforting, because the show looks good.
And if you haven't seen it, this is not... I watched this before COVID, but Creepshow is great.
Yes, Creepshow.
I asked Sam about that. I don't know if he mentions it in his monologue, which we'll go to shortly here, give him a chance to talk, but we were texting back and forth just last night, and I asked him about Creepshow, and he doesn't really enjoy those short format stories that much, because I guess he told me that I haven't seen it yet.
See, I have it because I watched it all on Shudder, and I binged it, and there's a couple of segments where I re-binged them. Like I'll go to that episode and just watch the segment I want to watch.
I like anthology horror, so I'm probably not going to have a problem with it when I do sit down with it. But if you don't like anthology horror, you're probably not going to like Creepshow. I mean, you probably didn't like the Creepshow movies, if that's the case. But if you like that stuff, then you're probably going to like the series. I haven't seen it yet, but just even the trailers for it look like, oh, this looks like it goes back to the 80s and that format that I love. So I think I'm going to really enjoy it. I haven't watched it yet. Did you guys ever watch Amazing Stories? Jeff's probably a little young for... Oh, you do?
I love Amazing Stories. Well, it varies. There are some that are great.
It's back on Apple TV Plus. There's only 5 episodes up on Apple Plus TV, Apple TV Plus, whatever the fuck they call it. I haven't watched them yet, but again, if you watch the trailer for that, it looks like it still has the flavor of the old Spielberg series, and which is very important to me. Like, that was a show I adored, but didn't get a fair shake because it just kept moving around in the time slots back in the day. So
that's what happens, and that's the whole thing. Once they start doing that, it's kind of like they're trying to kill a show. Yeah. It seems to me every time they start doing that, I'm like, no, you're just trying to kill it. You're not helping it. Everybody knows that.
Yeah, but I'm definitely going to watch those at some point. I've been holding off because I don't have like a smart TV or any device that plays Apple TV other than my phone and iPad, and I'm like, this show probably deserves better than this.
A bigger screen.
So I haven't ordered one yet, but I think I'll get like a Amazon Fire Stick or one of the Roku or something.
Yeah.
And then I can actually subscribe to Shudder as well, because I've been hesitant to subscribe to Shudder because the only access I have through my PlayStation is because I don't have an Xbox, so there's no actual Shudder app for PlayStation because Sony doesn't play well with others. So you can access it as a channel through Amazon, but it's not the same subscription. You're subscribing through Amazon, so you still couldn't use the Shudder app, even if you're paying for Shudder on Amazon. Also, you don't get the full package, specifically those wonderful Joe Bob marathons that I really want to experience live. At some point, I'm going to probably do it soon. Unfortunately, we're probably coming to an end of the Joe Bob marathons for this year, but they have been doing them. And I think they're rewatchable, hopefully, on Shudder. I don't know. I want to get the next set.
Yeah. There's a lot of stuff they'll keep in the library for a while. Like they do
Okay.
rotate stuff out.
Yeah.
But
Do they keep the Joe Bob marathons in there, though?
I haven't seen them go anywhere. The
Okay, good.
series seem to stick around.
Okay, cool.
So-
Yeah, like I like the idea of just watching a whole day's worth of stuff. It feels very drive-in, and I don't know. That sounds like a whole fun. And I noticed they live tweet and interact with fans during those things, but I don't even mind watching them, the old ones, before the next year when they do it again.
Yeah, I see like 3 Joe Bobs on here, and they haven't gone anywhere.
Well, I think the
4. 5.
Well, I think the host that is missing deserves some time, so let's let Sam take it over for a little bit, and we'll be back to close it off and talk a little bit more about what we watched, and we still haven't even gotten halfway, so we'll try to fly through some more of this.
So I'm doing my own quarantine watch list. When Jay told me we were doing this, I'm like, I didn't really watch that much, but as it turns out, I actually did watch quite a bit. When I first started watching stuff, I was in a real horror comedy mood. So I did watch quite a few horror comedies to start my isolation period with. Stuff like I went to some old favorites like Tucker and Dale, Bloodsucking Bastards, which is a great horror comedy if you haven't seen it. Highly recommend it. It's quirky. And of course that led me to Mayhem, which is another office horror comedy, which was, again, excellent and definitely worth watching. Then I had to complete the Rob Zombie trilogy, with House of a Thousand Corpses and The Devil's Rejects. I finally saw it with 3 from Hell. Jay, you were right. It just wasn't good. It could have been, but it wasn't. I think that having Captain Spaulding not really in it did hurt it a lot, and had all the rewrites that they had to do with it. It just didn't feel as cohesive as the other two. Well, House of a Thousand Corpses isn't all that cohesive either, but Devil's Rejects was good. And I wish you'd kind of been able to stay along that vein. I did. Then I sort of checked out Satanic Panic, and I couldn't resist after watching Bloodsucking Bastards. Fran Krantz, I think his name is, the lead in that one, is also in one called You Might Be the Killer with Alison Hannigan. Really not a good movie, but a lot of fun. It was an interesting twist on the whole slasher genre, but clearly an independent, low-budget film, and it definitely set up a sequel. And then we signed up for Shudder for the free trial because my wife wanted to watch cursed films. It's worth a watch if you're sort of interested in the history of these horror films that were supposedly cursed, and they kind of debunk it a little bit when they can. Sometimes it's just, well, yeah, this is what happened, and call it what you will. So it's fun. We did also watch History Horror from Eli Roth. It was because it was available on Shudder. That one felt like Eli Roth being kind of self-indulgent, which is what Eli Roth kind of does. No surprises there. There's one I've seen talked about on a Netflix film I've seen talked about a fair bit on our Twitter account. Follow us at Invasion Remake on Twitter. We have a lot of fun on there, and there's a lot of great content and stuff that we have there as well. But yes, I See You was a really interesting little horror film that was told really well. You don't necessarily see the ending coming. They give you lots of good hints, but it's well crafted enough that it's kind of in doubt until the final act. So definitely, I recommend that one. Then I went to some rewatches, some stuff that I wasn't sure about the first time I watched them, and I was bored, so I rewatched Lucy, which I'm still not sure about. Besson, one of my favorite sort of sci-fi action directors, but he does tend to be occasionally hit and miss, and this was right in the middle of that hit or miss. It was well crafted, some great action, but a little disappointing story-wise. It felt rushed. I think he could have done a lot more with it if he'd had a little more time. But overall, I mean, you've got Scarlett Johansson playing in her sort of new milieu of action roles. She's good at it. I definitely enjoyed watching it, but yeah, it's not one I think I'll go back to a third time. I had to watch Odd Thomas again. The wife and I were sitting around looking for something to watch, and yeah, even though she's not a fan of watching films with actors who are no longer with us, she did want to see this one, see it because I don't think she'd ever seen it before. It's still a good film, and it's comparable to the books by Kuntz. It's quite true to the at least the feel of the books and the character. And then I watched Adventureland again. I really didn't enjoy this film the first time I watched it, just because the characters were, to me, quite unlikable all the way through. And I kind of felt the same way the second watching, but I did enjoy it a little bit more. It just felt Like, I just think I connected to these unlikable characters a little bit better, but in the end, they're all selfish people, and I found it really hard to like them for the same reason I don't like Seinfeld. Is I can't connect to characters when there's nobody there to like. And in this case, there was just nobody really to like. As much as you do want to like Jesse Eisenberg, he's just too self-absorbed to really like him. Then we delved into TV quite a bit recently too. The fourth season of The Last Kingdom came out, and we've been big fans of that since it first started airing. The fourth season was solid as usual. What a great cast. And I am truly amazed that the lead actor in that is just not a huge star. He's so talented as an actor, and he's got the looks. He's got everything he needs to be a Hollywood star, but he continues to do independent films and focus on this one TV series, even though he should be doing something else or more. I'd like to see him in more film roles as well as more TV roles. Then, because The Last Kingdom kind of takes place after the Norse incursions into the United Kingdom or to the British Isles, and Val had a lot of questions while we were watching it about sort of who are the Danes, what are they doing there. We started watching Vikings, so we've watched the first 2 seasons of Vikings as well. Third one's still on Netflix. We're going to get to that eventually, but I thoroughly enjoy that one as well. I just think it's a great sort of peek into history. Even though it's fictionalized and sensationalized, it still gives you a sense of sort of how life might have been, and there's enough action to keep it from being dramatic or overly dramatic. And it's, again, another stellar cast. It's just so much good acting in there. Travis Fimmel is great as Ragnar. You've got Catherine Winnick also in one of those lead roles. Donald Logue is in the first couple seasons. So there's some solid actors that you'd recognize in the series. And if you're not watching it, definitely you should check it out. First 3 seasons are on Netflix. Now we're kind of sort of reaching the end of my list, believe it or not. There's a couple rewatches there, one from the 80s, and I think that, Jay, this is one that we need to add to our list for possibly remaking. I had a blast watching it. It's a James Spader action musical comedy. Yes, action musical comedy. And it's a lot of fun from the 80s. It's goofy, and it's not good, but it could be. It could really be. So yeah, let's consider adding Tough Turf to our list of potential remakes. There's another one. I keep going back to this movie, and I'm not sure why. But I've watched Love in a 45 a few times, and I remember the first time I watched it, I'm just like blown away by how gritty and fun and sort of tongue-in-cheek this movie was. And again, it's one of those movies that's really flawed in a lot of ways, but is still, for me, eminently watchable. And I enjoy it every time. I think that when you have people like Renee Zellweger in early roles and Rory Cochrane in a fairly early role, you have Peter Fonda, and some other great supporting actors throughout the whole film, including Jeffrey Combs, a favorite of ours. You can't go wrong with a film like that. Of course, we did do the Girl with the Dragon Tattoo movies, and that did inspire me to watch The Girl to Play with Fire and The Girl Who Kicked the Hornet's Nest. I had forgotten how strong these films really are, and I love the way the story moves with Elizabeth and Michael, making them where it's not just about the murder mystery they solved in the first movie or book, but there's more happening. There's a lot more about Elizabeth's story and her investigation into her past, and then of course the third book, it becomes a full-out conspiracy novel or conspiracy story, and it's just, yeah, if you have not seen these movies, I highly recommend them. Dubbed or subtitled, they're still entertaining and really, really well-crafted films. A couple more rewatches to sort of wrap things up, or the last week or so. I did want to watch Molly's Game again after watching it for our Oscars episode a couple years ago, because I really enjoyed it the first time I watched it, and I thoroughly enjoyed it again on the second watching. It's just these true stories sometimes resonate, even though they obviously fictionalize certain aspects of it, sensationalize certain aspects of it, but it's engaging. You like the character. Her trials and tribulations are, you tend to feel them a little bit because it is so well made, and Jessica Chastain's performance is so solid. She deserved to be nominated, and that film was definitely overlooked as part of that whole Oscar season. With the one nomination it got, I don't think it was well served, because it was really quite good. The last thing I really watched was for fun was Deadpool 2, because I didn't really enjoy it as much as I thought I would the first time I watched it. I think I did enjoy it a lot more the second time. I mean, I still enjoyed it, but you inevitably compare things to the first film, and the first film was so much fun, and the second one, it seems like they tried a little bit harder to give you more of a story, and in the end, it kind of got a little muddy, but it's still a fun film, and I like the new characters they've introduced, and certainly the casting for those new characters is excellent. I don't think they could have done any better. But my big watch has been the Bosch TV series on Prime. The Bosch TV series on Prime. I had just read the books leading into and during the first part of the self-isolation period there, so that was what I did for the first couple of weeks, was just sort of read. And then I decided, you know what, let's watch the series. And even if you haven't read the books, it's worth watching. It's really well made. Titus Welliver is exactly who you'd expect to see as Bosch. Like, he really does kind of fit the picture in your head of who this character is. They do a great job of incorporating the existing novels into the seasons, but they also do a good job of tweaking them enough so that they're not exactly the same without taking away from the stories. And they add their own sort of sub-stories and new stories to the seasons to give you sort of something a little more robust and whole cloth. And it's, yeah, I just really enjoyed it. The casting is excellent for everybody in the series. If you're into those sort of crime TV series, I think this is one of the better ones out there, just because the character is so well developed and well crafted, and just really, even though you shouldn't like him, you do. The only thing that I would criticize is that, and I suspect it's probably because of the Lincoln Lawyer movie, which features another character from the same author as the Bosch series, and there's some crossover. In fact, the Lincoln Lawyer in the books is Harry Bosch's half-brother. And some of the stories where Mickey Haller, who is the Lincoln Lawyer, would have been present, they kind of glossed over that and created new characters to fill that role. And I did find that a little disappointing, because the dynamic between Harry and Mickey is quite good in the books and quite enjoyable, and you look forward to those times where they do cross over, because they are on opposite sides of the fence, with Harry being a police officer and Mickey being a defense lawyer. So Harry's job is to capture these criminals, and Mickey's is there to get them off. And so there's an interesting dynamic there that I felt was a little bit lost. They do bring in a character who to sort of fill that gap. She's a character from the original novels, but they've filled her out and given her more to do in the series, and she does a great job of it. But I did miss seeing that a character from the other series crossing over. But again, I think that's licensing, and because there is an existing movie with that character. And that's pretty much the sum total of my viewing up to this point, aside from my John Wick binge over the last 2 nights. I was looking for something fun to watch, and I've seen John Wick multiple times, but I'd only seen John Wick 2 and John Wick Parabellum once each. So it was fun to watch them all back to back, just to sort of see how they all tie into each other, and it gives you sort of a really great sensory experience watching them so close together, versus the breaks between the original releases. So if you haven't done that already, by all means do it. It's a full evening. You're looking at 6 hours plus of John Wick violence extravaganza. It's a thoroughly enjoyable 6 hours. Yeah, and that's pretty much it. I don't have much more to say. That's my quarantine list. I'm sure that you'll have a lot of fun listening to Jay, Trish, and Jeff Omega share their viewing habits over the last little while with you as well. On that note, I'm always Sam.
All right. Thank you, Sam, for sending that in to us. It's too bad he can't be part of our live conversation today, but, he's got a day job, and unfortunately sometimes it lands on our record date. But it was very interesting, and he sounds like he initially didn't think he'd watch that much, but he actually watched quite a bit.
Well, and as we were discussing, and how he's pounded through Shudder, I thought I'd maybe bring up some of the stuff I watched on Shudder.
Please do. It sounds like Shudder was the place to go for at least some of us.
Yes. I went through the entire Shudder original series of Cursed films.
I really want to watch that. Actually, Sam mentions that, had just mentioned that in his monologue there as well.
We just watched the first episode last night.
Nice. It's really good. They did some really good stuff with it. I felt maybe the Twilight Zone one is probably the weakest one.
Considering how big of a story that was at the time.
Here's why I think it is the weakest one. Is in every prior one, and including The Crow, Michael Berryman, and I think in The Crow and like Poltergeist, I don't remember which one it is, but Michael Berryman says something quite profound in it, and I don't know if I should tell anybody, but I mean, I think I want you to watch it, where it's about how when you attribute these tragedies to a curse, it sort of just weakens the horrible experience that these people died. And they died at the hands of other people, and they died because somebody didn't do something. Somebody was like medical incompetence for Heather O'Rourke, and the older sister because of some abusive dickbag. Like it just
or just a
degrades
tragic
their-
set accident.
Yeah, like it
Brandon
degrades
Lee. Yeah, it does. It seems to diminish the sacrifice that was made. I mean, a helicopter crashed on the set of Twilight Zone, killing one of the actors and 2 children. So that's horrible.
But here's the thing about that episode is all the other ones are kind of about we can't keep talking about curses because these accidents happen and stuff went wrong and we've got to pay attention. And then in Twilight Zone, it seems like because they don't want to alienate the director, is like they just put their hands up, oh, you know what? Accidents happen and it's sad. And it seems to really undercut that there were some serious fuck-ups on set.
Yeah.
And somebody, quite frankly, was at fault. But we don't want to alienate people who still have pull in Hollywood. Like it was just...
I mean, and it really changed how these stunts are done, especially with helicopters and whatnot. After that, it changed a lot of how the industry works, specifically with actors and dangerous stunts like that. Like none of those people should have been on that set during that scene.
True, but it left a bad taste in my mouth when the whole thing, like, kind of at the end. And then somebody, I don't know who says, like, it's going like, he's going to, like, the director's going to have to live with that for the rest of his life. Oh, yeah, because his tragedy is so much worse than the parents watching their kids cut in half. Sorry.
Well, I mean, psychologically speaking, that is scarring. I mean, they're not, I don't think they're trying to diminish that.
I think they are.
I haven't seen it. I do want to see the series, and we'll talk about that off show at some point when I've caught up with it. But
it's really good overall, though.
Yeah.
Like it's a really, really well done, and because it's not so long, the episodes aren't so long. You can really pack in a bunch of information.
Right.
That's really quite good.
Right.
And then I watched the documentary Horror Noir, which was really, really good.
I don't know about that one. What is that?
It's about...
I love horror documentaries. I love them.
Yeah. Horror Noir Uncut. It's about the history of, like, Black people in horror.
Oh, I have heard about. I think I've seen the trailer for it. I often get like Shudder ads on my YouTube.
Good.
So,
what you find out, I found out the most interesting little tidbit of information. Where, the guy from Magnum PI, he said no to his part in the thing. So Keith David took it, and he went on to big success in Magnum PI, and Keith David went on to do the thing, and like because that one guy said no, 2 people got great careers.
That's cool.
And they bring up a few other movies that I definitely have to see. There's Ganja and Hess, which I haven't watched yet, but I had never even heard of, and it's on Shudder. But there's so many. They tell you all these movies that some of them I hadn't even heard of.
Yeah, Ganja and Hess, we should do an episode about, because it was remade as The Sweet Blood of Jesus recently.
I did some research after it. Again, Jason, like we do in this show, now I start to research stuff after I read about it.
Sam's the same way. We were talking. I don't know if he mentioned that, but
we can't just watch stuff anymore.
No, this show has ruined us as a whole.
I mean, I did that before.
I did before, but I'm trying to remember. It seems like I've always done the podcast now. It just is. It's part of my life now.
Yeah,
I've always been here.
I can't. It's BP before podcast and A after podcast.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, for Trish and I being the movie buffs we are. I mean, I've been through film school and stuff too. Let's face it, we've always done this podcast. We just didn't record it.
Exactly. And then, but Shudder's been like an incredible resource, because sometimes, like, I know everything happening all around is very horrible, but to watch horror, I know this is sort of, it detaches me a little bit more from actual horror. So it's kind of nice.
Well, I feel like my being through Walking Dead now, I'm at that acceptance stage, because when we did Planet of the Apes, I went and watched Rise of the Planet of the Apes. I wanted to go through the news cycle again because it's so good. And I'm like, oh, right, it's a Contagion film, and I couldn't go any further. I wasn't ready. I didn't want to do it.
that brings me back to thinking when you're talking about Bloodshot, and it's like Toby Gebel. He's also one of the, he's also plays one of the apes in the new.
Mm-hmm.
I kept thinking, if they did the Bloodshot movie where, he's young enough to be a main character, but, a different character other than Bloodshot, who this thing is happening to. The whole time I was watching the movie, I'm like, that could have been the movie, and I would have watched it. Because I like him, and I think he could do some good stuff.
Well, I know Jeff's got a lot more to talk about, so keep going down your list, man, unless you've been inspired by stuff we've been talking about.
Can I do one more?
Okay, you can do one more, because you had your Shudder list, so we'll keep going with the Shudder list.
One Shudder list.
Shudder, if you're listening, hello, you're sponsoring everybody else's podcast. Sponsor us.
We are on here because they added one that I hadn't seen in years, and I was like, as soon as it was on, I watched it right away. It was Elvira, Mistress of the Dark.
Oh, I did that too.
Shout out to Jeff McNair.
I had forgotten about that, and there was this big, it was a 80s horror documentary. Jeff knows what I'm talking about. In Search of Darkness. In Search of Darkness. I've watched it twice. It's a long-ass documentary, and I have no problem sitting through all 4 hours. Plus, I think it's 4.5 hours. But Elvira's in it, and I'm like, I had never seen Elvira, Mistress of the Dark before. And, I did. It's fun. It's stupid.
It's such dumb fun, but it's great.
I don't know if I liked it as much as you guys do, but I'm glad I watched it. I don't think I'll ever do it again, but you never know.
Think,
it gets into your head.
Part of the allure of Elvira, I think, really does tie back into her video horror host days, which is kind of like a dying. It's interesting. It feels like it's a dying thing, horror hosts, but in an age of streaming, it could be on the resurgence.
Yeah.
But her hosting movies was a really big part of why people loved her, and the movie was a result of that, I think, more than anything.
I think that's why I wanted to watch the Joe Bob stuff on Shudder, is because here you have the hosts again, and it harkens back to an older era of television and a more personal one that I kind of like, because they're engaging directly with you, and now you can do that in such a unique way with the web. So I'd like to see that, but with this whole COVID thing to begin with, we're starting to see drive-ins come back.
Yes.
I think there's a great documentary. I think it's on Tubi right now about drive-ins. I can't find it anywhere anymore, but there is a wonderful documentary about horror hosts as well.
And speaking of Tubi, you can watch Elvira presenting stuff on Tubi.
Yeah, a lot of the old Elvira presenting the movie stuff is over there as well. Almost all of them, I think. There's quite a few of them. It's weird. You go through Tubi and you'll do a weird full moon movie or something, and you can watch the full moon one, or you can watch Elvira introducing the movie. There's 2 or 3 versions of the same thing on there. It's a weird little thing to start surfing through, but they're there.
Yeah. And at the end of Elvira, Mistress of the Dark, where she does the tassel thing, I'm looking at it going I have time. Maybe I could learn that.
Others make sourdough.
Right?
I've been experimenting with my rice cooker. You're going to learn how to spin tassels on your nipples.
Hey, I've been failing consistently at sourdough. I'm going to try something else.
Well, I can't find white flour because people hoard. So I have been I'm learning how to use my whole wheat, but man, the rice cooker that I barely used, I'm having a lot of fun with right now.
Nice.
So I gotta thank my sister for this one. She sent me a YouTube video, and this guy took his rice cooker and used his leftover KFC in it. So what he did, he took his rice. I'll just tell everybody, here's the recipe portion of our program.
Nice.
And so he puts in the rice, and instead of water, the amount of water, I usually will do just a 1/4 cup of rice for myself, because that is a plenty of rice. If you're using real rice, minute rice, it doesn't expand and it's bullshit. But use real rice. And he used chicken stock, threw in a little bit of chili powder, some fish sauce. I like to use oyster sauce, some soy sauce, whatever spices you like. And then he threw in his vegetables on top of that, and then he threw his KFC in there, and then let it go. And of course, yeah, the skin's going to get all mushy and stuff, but that's also all the flavor, right? And then all the chicken becomes really tender. So then you just mix it all together when you take it out. And so when I tried it, I didn't have any KFC, but I had leftover duck I had done. So I had the duck version of it, and it was quite something. It was delicious, and that led to all sorts of experimenting. So anyway, that's the cooking portion. Watch for the YouTube videos that are never coming.
All sorts of experimentation, cleaning your monocle with different cleaning fluids after eating your meal of duck.
It had been in my freezer forever. I couldn't do Easter with my family, so I had a little Easter with myself.
Nice.
So there
That's
you go.
great.
Yeah, but mental note, if I ever do duck again, it's going back on the barbecue. First time I made duck, I did it on the barbecue. This time I did it in the oven, but oh my God, they're so greasy that they just make a mess of your ovens. So don't do what I did.
Okay.
I was even told not to do it, but I did it anyway.
Good to know.
Yeah,
Good to know.
Don't do them in your oven. It's a fucking mess.
All right.
But anyway, so some more Shudder stuff. Jeff, you had your own experiences on Shudder.
I actually, you know what? So here's the thing. I'm more in your camp where we have Shudder and we kind of share a subscription with a few people. Mm-hmm. And as people do, it's a modern, hippie thing, I guess. But anyway,
so there went our sponsorship just out the window.
Yeah.
But I'm much more in your camp where, because it's not in an app in our PlayStation, and our living room kind of is where we do a lot of our working and drawing and stuff. We don't really watch a lot of Shudder because we really only watch Shudder in bed, and we don't really do that often. Like on a computer or something.
There's other things to do in bed.
Yeah.
Yeah. But some of us are just alone, dude.
There are still other things you can do.
You know what? I've been reading a lot of books, actually. It's just been very good.
I do. I'll read at night, too, yeah. And on my iPad, yeah.
But, if I was to skip down from C, skipping a couple letters because I didn't watch a movie for every letter of the alphabet. I'm not that crazy. We watched Tobe Hooper's Funhouse, which is great.
That's been on my list for a while, and I still haven't watched it. And I've considered it just doing a remake episode of it just so I can watch the damn thing.
It's really good. It's like Texas Chainsaw Massacre, but in a theme park, and it's great.
I think I've told you. Yeah, I think I recommend. I was saying that it would be a good remake because it really does lend itself really well to it.
Yeah, and it reminded me a little of a movie called Hellfest, which came out a couple years ago. Yeah, and that was actually pretty good.
Okay, yeah, that's another one I haven't watched. It's kind of on my list, but it looked a lot like Funhouse, and I don't know. I kind of want to watch Funhouse more.
It'd be a good double feature, I think, because they're different enough that you could double feature them. Then after that, we have The Hand, which is an early Oliver Stone. Very great. You guys talked about it.
Yeah, Jeff Alpha was still on the show when we did that one, and what did we compare that one to? Because Wikipedia had mistakenly listed it as being a remake of an earlier film.
Yeah,
the creature
hands or something like that.
No, the something with the five fingers.
The five
fingers of Dr. T.
No, the evil with the five fingers. I don't know. Let's go look through our archives, guys.
After that, we got Harold and Maude, which I loved. It's a very, very beautiful movie. After that, we got House, the Japanese House, which is, amazing, mind-bogglingly crazy. If you like Japanese craziness, House is the movie for you to watch if you want to watch a horror movie.
By the way, episode 21, The Beast with the Five Fingers and versus the Hand. That was the episode.
Yeah, I just looked that up too. I was going to tell you.
But yeah, you guys are talking about House, aka Hausu.
Yeah, great. That one's very fun.
I have not seen that movie, but I have seen the piano that eats somebody.
Yeah.
Yes.
No, it's worth checking out. We watched it on Criterion.
That one looks crazy. Like, it looks like it would be a good double feature with Society because they're both like big body horror movies.
Yeah. Well,
and
there's like a music video partway through. There's like an evil cat.
So weird.
It's so great.
It's like everything that you kind of picture in your brain about 1960s horror Japanese, go, and then that's kind of what House is.
Yeah.
Right. Fun.
Oh, yeah. After that, we actually got a fun cult classic, J-Men Forever. Have you guys heard of this movie?
No.
No.
It's not worth anything if you find it. Apparently, it's very cheap whenever you find it. It's from the 70s, and basically, it's like the stoner cult classic where these two dudes took footage from old Republic serials and then edited them together into a 90-minute movie, and then they, like, shot a scene with themselves in an office, and then they're the headquarters that gives people their missions. And then the whole movie is, like, built around all of this reused footage. And the villain of the movie is voiced by a famous, like, talk show, like, Wolfman radio host of the time. And it's from the early 70s or mid 70s.
Oh, man.
Yeah, it's a really cool movie. And it's
Wolfman
shockingly
Jack?
funny. It might have been Wolfman Jack.
Because he would have been right in his heyday, probably in the 70s and 80s.
Yeah.
So.
It was one of the Wolfmen. But yeah,
Cool.
very funny, shockingly funny. Worth checking out. It might even be on YouTube.
Nice.
Sounds interesting. Weird.
Yeah. Then after that on Tubi, we watched The Lobster with
Oh, yeah.
oh my goodness, that actor.
Colin Farrell?
Yeah, with Colin Farrell and John C. Reilly, and that was quite a
And
movie.
Olivia Colman?
Yep.
That's a pretty... That one was up for some Oscars when... I'm surprised it's actually on Tubi.
Yeah, Tubi has great movies and it's free, everybody.
Yeah.
And they have a PlayStation app.
And they have a PlayStation app. That is key for me.
Yeah.
The Lobster is, oh man, it's a really great movie. And like, if you're perpetually single, it's a horror movie that's made just for you.
Yeah, it's a cool movie.
I'll check it
Conceptually,
out.
it's brilliant.
I haven't been on my Tubi in a very long time, so I've been ignoring it and for the stuff I actually pay for. So I should go back to it at some point. It's quite the resource of weird.
And this one is like Colin Farrell, like, I don't know, like, you know how good he is. And then I watch this, I'm like, oh wait, yeah, he is good. Because like sometimes he plays like kind of, like I watch Fright Night and he's good in that. Like sometimes he'll just do trashy fun, but then you forget how good he is.
And I think like this director, I can't remember which country he's from.
Greece.
He might be Greek. Yeah, he's a Greek director, and I think that the way he coaches dialogue is very interesting because it sounds very foreign to be spoken from English actors in this kind of, but it's kind of poetic in its own way. It's more about the sound of how they're talking. It's very interesting.
Well, considering how he did Dogtooth, language is a very, very big theme in a lot of his films.
Okay, well, we're closing in here at the end of this episode. So how much more do you guys got on your list here?
I've got
Not too
couple
much.
things.
Okay, so let's do some honorable mentions. Jeff, continue with your list, and we'll just blow through them here.
I'll blow through them. Men in Black International. You know what?
Yeah.
It was fun, but if they had any makeup effects, that's kind of what made the original ones so fun, and it lacked that entirely.
I feel like that movie, the critics were a lot harsher on it than they needed to be. It's not super terrible, but it's not good either. But honestly, the first Men in Black is great, and then the rest sucks. So
Yeah.
And then we got Messiah of Evil, really cool, obscure, early zombie movie, cult zombie movie.
Cool.
And then we got Necropolis, David Cronenberg.
Oh yeah, I've never seen Necropolis, but
It's cool.
I can't. The cover art for the VHS is ingrained in my head.
Yeah, it's a cool movie.
Wasn't that
It's very
H.R. Giger who
interesting.
did that poster art?
Oh, I don't know, actually.
Yeah, I mean, I know I can see it emblazoned in my head. I used to work in a video store, and that one was a very memorable VHS.
Oh, yeah. Sorry, I was confusing the director, but yes, no, Necropolis. Yeah, it was very, very interesting.
Yeah.
Then we got Onward, Disney Plus, Pixar movie. Sure, you guys maybe have seen it?
Not yet, but it's actually I actually have a little list of things that I want to catch, and Onward was moved to Disney Plus really quickly, so I want to check it out. And in just by the time everybody hears it, it'll probably be there. But Artemis Fowl is going to be dropped directly to Disney Plus. It was supposed to be a fairly big release this year, but unfortunately got bumped from the theaters because of backlogs. So it's going directly to Disney Plus, and I'm very much looking forward to it. So I might do Onward and Artemis Fowl together, I think, as
cool.
new content stuff. So
Totally.
anything else?
Yeah, so we got Orgasmo, fun. So the thing is with Orgasmo, for anyone who hasn't seen it, is it's basically a borderline, if not NC-17 rated movie, but has no nudity or anything.
You were on a Matt and Trey tear.
I was.
That one I have seen.
Yeah, it's good. Then we got Pontypool, interesting Canadian horror movie.
Oh, well, finally. You're the last man standing on that one.
Yeah. The French-Canadian zombie virus.
So good.
Yeah.
So strange.
Yeah.
So we got the Quatermass Experiment, first X-rated movie, Hammer horror films, mad scientist film.
It's classic.
We got Role Models by David Wayne, because we were on a David Wayne kick. We got Slugs, very gory horror movie, very fun.
It sounds like it's in the vein of Slither.
Yeah, Slugs is like, a little bit. I'd actually say that Slugs could be an inspiration for Slither a little bit.
Right, okay.
Nice.
Spontaneous Combustion, I'd say is actually one of my favorite underrated Tobe Hooper movies.
Oh,
cool. I don't think I've ever heard of that one.
Yeah.
I've never heard of it.
It might be on a free streaming service somewhere. It might be online somewhere, but I got a lucked out, found it used Blu-ray. And it's Brad Dourif is the main character.
Oh, excellent.
Yeah, and it's Tobe Hooper was really experimenting with like noir lighting and like primary color palettes and stuff. So it's a beautifully shot and beautifully designed looking movie. Yeah, it's great.
Brad Dourif's in some really interesting stuff. He's like one of those actors who's never really broken out in the mainstream, and it's kind of baffled me as to why. But he finds really interesting projects to work on.
Yeah, and he doesn't headline a movie very often, so it's a treat when he does.
Yeah.
So then after that, blitz through the rest, we got THX 1138, finally got around to watching last night. We got Turkey Shoot, bizarre Australian movie about prisoners being hunted by the rich. It's very bizarre. I'm sure some people who have heard of it will be like, oh yeah, Turkey Shoot. We got Video Dead. We got Waiting, which is actually pretty fun comedy that I finally got around to watching. If you've worked in the service industry, you'll get it a lot.
I've seen it.
And then finally, the big one I wanted to talk about that was our probably funnest discovery, the most lighthearted thing that we really binged through during this whole thing was Wet Hot American Summer, the movie, and then both of the Netflix TV shows.
Oh, nice. I've not watched any of it, but it does look pretty fun.
Yeah, it's like way funnier than you'd expect. And it's the type of movie where it has so many jokes and visual gags that even if you only find like 60% of the jokes funny, there's so many jokes that generally you're going to have some good laughs all the way through.
Nice.
Cool.
So,
well, I'll make some of my honorable mentions here as well. Let's see what I need to mention here. Out of my movies, a couple of the other ones that I watched at the beginning that kind of dropped onto VOD, Birds of Prey, which I really wasn't wanting to watch, theatrically speaking, the Birds of Prey and the Harley Quinn there. The Emancipation of Harley Quinn. That's why they changed the title, because it sucked. But the trailers looked like ass, and I'm like, oh, this is going to be Suicide Squad all over again. Oh, I'm getting there. The trailers I thought looked terrible, and I thought it was like, here we go again with Suicide Squad all over again, which was just a horrible movie. And then I watched it, and I'm like, fuck, this was great. This was a lot of fun. I didn't see it as the ultra violence that people were telling me about, but maybe I'm a little more used to that from my movies. I'm quite desensitized. We watch a lot of horror and stuff, so I didn't think it was overly over the top as far as violence goes, but I was pleasantly surprised, and it continued what I consider a DC trend. Shitty trailer, pretty good movie. Good trailer, shitty movie. That seems to be what they do. So maybe if I see another one and I don't like the trailer, it might be good, because I felt the same way about Shazam. I'm like, ooh, that trailer was ass, and it turned out to be a fantastic film. As far as TV goes, I did like The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo. When we did that episode, I continued on with the original film trilogy. So I watched The Girl with Play of Fire and Girl with the Hornet's Nest. Now, Sam talked about it during his monologue there as well, so don't need need to go back into how fantastic those are. I highly recommend all of them. They are fantastic as far as and shifting tonally as well into kind of a more political intrigue by that third entry.
Yeah.
So great stuff. We talked about them a little bit during the Girl with Dragon Tattoo episodes, and Sam talked a little bit more there as well. And go back to the Girl with the Dragon Tattoo episode and where we talked about it more in depth. Good stuff. As far as TV goes, I've been revisiting Almost Human recently. After it was during my my outage on the internet, so I actually have those here. So I started rewatching that. Great Carl Urban series that only got one season. Science fiction cop procedural, and it's fantastic. And it's a shame that it only got its one season, but it's much like Firefly. Just didn't get its go, and everybody who watched it loved it. Watch it. It's great if you can find it. I started Pennyworth, the first season. Quite enjoying that so far, and it's even though it's a Batman type of spin-off, but for the most part, it's like a James Bond about Alfred in his younger years in London. Great stuff. Oh. I've been watching the Guardians of the Galaxy cartoon over on Disney Plus. I've been enjoying those, and some of the new Simpsons shorts have been dropping there. I've been really enjoying those. Netflix has got the third season just dropped recently for Magic for Humans. What a, Street Magicians, but it's such a feel-good show. Like, there are times where he'll do something, he did something for his mom with Alzheimer's that just damn near made me cry. Because it's very close to home for me, probably would be for Trish as well. Yeah. But for the most part, it's such a feel-good show, and we need stuff like that now. So watch Magic for Humans. It's really good. I've been trying out Son of Zorn. Not sure how I feel about that yet, but it's on Netflix. The sitcom about BDSM, Bonding, is also on Netflix. It's really short. They're really short episodes, 15 to 18 minutes, really. So I'll watch them eating dinner at the table or something. But nothing about watching bondage while you're having a meal. But it's kind of fun if you're into that sort of thing. I might be. I don't know. I may have discovered a fetish. Nice. And I just watched it really recently. There's a show on Apple Plus TV that I really enjoyed, and I kind of binged it just prior to the lockdown, which was called Mythic Quest. And it's comedy, really well-written comedy about a video game development firm and the internal struggles with each other. And it's a really, really well-written and funny show. But they did a COVID special recently. So they did an entire, very polished episode in a Zoom kind of way. Like all the characters were contacting each other, and I really enjoyed it because it's very much mirrored what we're all going through here as well. That isolation and how it affected some of those people. It hit me in some personal feels ways as well. So if you have access to it, I got it free for a year when I bought my new phone. So right now, there's not a lot of stuff on Apple Plus TV to warrant the $5.99 a month type right now, but the stuff they're producing is high quality. So I can see it being worth it down the road, and if anything gets me to renew it, it's going to be Mythic Quest. So, but cool. That's kind of one of the ones I wanted to talk about. Things I want to hit while we're still in lockdown: Artemis Fowl, Scoob, Fantasy Island, Onward, Lovebirds, which I think just hit Netflix, Bad Boys for Life. We'll see. Invisible Man and Old Guard. I'm really looking forward to the Old Guard on Netflix. So that's kind of my list for lockdown. Trish, close us out here.
Yeah, I will close us out. I had a few movies. There's one I always watch when I'm feeling down, and you know which one it is. It is Clue.
Oh, of course, Clue.
Clue is incredible.
Don't know why I didn't clue in, because, yes, I know about that.
You didn't clue in. It's always Clue. When I'm sick, I watch Clue. When I'm sad, I watch Clue.
All right. Well, see, this is what I said about personal. These movies are getting us through a tough time, right?
Gives me comfort.
Yeah.
Any movie with Tim Curry, if you're feeling sad, check it out.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. You know what? One I didn't mention that I did watch recently because of Treasure Planet last week. I watched Muppet Treasure Island.
Me too.
All right, so go ahead. I forgot about that one.
Awesome. So, and like you said, I got into the quarantine early because I got back from overseas in the beginning of March. So what happened was I did my own 14 days, but on my way back, I'm counting this one. I watched Dr. Sleep on the plane.
Mm-hmm.
Nice.
I enjoyed it.
Yeah, it was a cool movie.
Different, but I enjoyed it.
God, I forgot about that. It's sitting in a pile. I've been, like I said, I've leaned towards the familiar rather than the unfamiliar, but I really want to watch that movie.
Yeah, like visually, like he's managed to merge both of those together and pay homage to the big movie and like the books. So
yeah, the Shining movie that Stephen doesn't want to recognize, Mr. King doesn't want to recognize, but to bring it back to something Stephen would be a little more happy with. So I'm interested to see how that merge and honoring two visionaries in one movie.
Absolutely, and it's very well done. Like definitely honoring both and not.
I mean, Mike Flanagan's turned out to be one of my favorite new voices in horror. I mean, Jesus Christ, I don't think I've seen anything of his I didn't love. Like love, not like love.
True. And I you know what? And I don't think it's just horror. Like Mike Flanagan gets the emotional core.
Yeah, he likes to play in horror, but he really knows how to, and that's why him and Stephen King work so well together. Is Stephen gets to. It's not the horror so much as the characters going through whatever they're going through in those movies and being so real on the page or even on the screen. And they have a very similar sensibility in telling stories, whether it's Mike Flanagan's more unique stuff like Oculus. It still feels like a Stephen King story, even though it's not. So, I mean, those two were born to work together.
True. And
that's why he'd be good for Monkey Shines.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. And he also tugs at your heart. Like there's so many times I'm watching a Mike Flanagan movie and I'm like, oh my God, like I feel not just horrified, but like my emotional horror, like just sad.
Mm-hmm.
And he totally gets it. It's a great balance. It's him and Guillermo del Toro who do that brilliantly.
Yeah.
So after that, there was actually a TV show that they were advertising in the UK before I left, and it hadn't been released yet. And it was called Feel Good. And it's Mae Martin, who's a Canadian comic, and I've listened to some of her stand book, but she lives in like London, and she's an ex-addict, and it's sort of like this relationship she starts with this other woman. It's like kind of a dramedy, but it's quite good because like she's a stand-up, so I get some of the stuff she's going through, and then like sort of she falls in love, like, and then the addiction type of deals is actually really interesting as well.
Mm-hmm.
And Ramon Tickerum, who's also in Brassic, he keeps showing up in stuff I'm watching. I don't know how, but yeah, so it's a really good series. I would recommend it.
Cool.
Very much so. And then again, I mentioned I did Brassic.
Yeah.
That was also there. Duncanville, a new like just cartoon that I was watching because it was new and I just wanted to see something new. It's not bad. It's lots of silliness. And through watching this, I came across Revelation that I will share at the end of this because this will all tie together. And then Bob's Burgers.
Mm-hmm.
I always go back to Bob's Burgers. I love it. I love it, love it, love it.
Yeah, Leah has been watching, we've watched through this past season that's been coming out, and it's really, really good.
It's so good. Like, it's just, and it's light enough I don't have to think, but I can feel okay. The world feels okay. I want to live in Bob's Burgers. Then I know everything will be fine. And then I rebinged Crazy Ex-Girlfriend, which is funny that you mentioned from Earth Girls Are Easy and that, like, the other...
Mm-hmm.
He's done some amazing work, and like I kind of want to get the soundtrack because like there's all these really, really good songs that are just hilarious, but they're such great homages to everything, and they do stick in your head. That's the only downside I will give you, is you will just be singing these to yourselves because you can't stop. What else did I watch? I watched so many TV series. Oh, I watched Indebted with Fran Drescher, and this is a weird thing I have just realized. Most people make fun of Fran Drescher's voice. Hers soothes me. It makes me feel happy.
Aw.
So I will listen, and I was going on a whole Fran Drescher tear because I was like, because like she's always so full of life and so vibrant, and I'm like, once I hear Fran Drescher, everything's going to be fine.
Well, now I know how to calm me down. Just run my fingernails on a chalkboard.
See, that's the whole thing. Other people don't like it, but I don't know what it is. It's like my brain is wired a bit differently in what I find reassuring about it.
Mm-hmm.
And there's another actress called Betsy Sidaro who I've been listening to her podcast called A Funny Feeling, which is like a paranormal podcast. And it's listening to her voice. She's got a very kind of gravelly one, very Fran Drescher-esque. So I listened to that podcast. I listened to Fran Drescher. I watched Disjointed with Kathy Bates, which is I enjoyed it. It's a silly, decent sitcom about a weed shop in California. And she's in that. But yeah, like sort of gravelly voiced women somehow make me feel okay. Don't know what it is. I like have reverse ASMR. And then what I also did is I did a whole puzzle binging the No Sleep podcast. And they've done some really incredible episodes during quarantine about pandemics. And like there's also like their horror stories are very well done. I love that podcast. So if you get a chance, that's definitely
I'll try to plug some before I leave here because I've been listening to a lot of full cast audio podcasts.
Absolutely, yeah. Like Fourbull, I've been listening to a few other things, and I've got the John Finnemore souvenir program. Can't miss with that. But yeah, now my brain's going blank. But yeah, the In Search of Darkness, I watched that, and then that kind of put me down like a hole of stuff I was rewatching. Oh, I rewatched Leprechaun that we did in an earlier episode.
That's cool.
I was like,
there's something about like I like watching horror documentaries, and even though it may take me a while to watch some of the movies on there that I'm not familiar with, I'll watch those horror documentaries over and over again. They're great. Just sometimes in the background I'll watch them to death, and I've got a whole library of horror ones. So I was so happy when a nice big robust one came out recently. Those same guys are actually working on 80s science fiction movie right now
that's really cool.
Go crowdfund. So I'm really looking forward to that one too.
Science fiction is really, really overlooked in like that kind of field. Like horror is really looked at a lot academically, but science fiction is often left in the lurch. So that's well worth doing.
Yeah, I've got a couple of science fiction documentaries, but I'm looking forward to theirs. A nice examination of the 80s ones.
Yeah, and sci-fi horror is also a very interesting like sort of subgenre, and I feel they've done some really good ones. Like, what was Event Horizon that we did on this podcast?
Oh, I love that.
Yeah, there's some great sci-fi horror stuff. I mean, we always tease about doing John Carpenter's The Thing, and maybe one day we will. We don't want to... that one's like the one when people think about remakes. That's the one that's always on everybody's mind. So it feels like it's been done to death. So when we do it, it'll be on an anniversary episode or near the end of our run when we decide to wind it down. Our first step, we'll do it. It was someday, I promise.
Or we'll do it on a cliff and be like, okay, we're out.
It'll be like...
It might be mass suicide.
It might be episode 300. It might be episode 500. Who knows? Episode 1,000. We could do this forever, so...
Absolutely.
Okay, you got any last ones you want to cover really quickly? Otherwise, I'm going to close this out here.
No, there was just like I say, like a lot of podcasts, a lot of horror podcasts.
Okay. Yeah, me too.
Paranormal podcasts. Doing puzzles. If you're going to do a puzzle, podcast is the way to go because you can't pay attention to a movie, but a podcast is awesome.
Podcasts, audio books. They're really good when I was doing the data entry stuff. So, also, I'll plug my friend at Dickens YYC. You can catch him on Twitch right now because Dickens is one of my favorite pubs and it's closed. They bring in a lot of bands and stuff, and unfortunately they had to cancel their big Terminus festival for the pub, but they've been doing it every Saturday through May live on Twitch. So they've been bringing all these bands on Twitch, and so you can catch them those, and the lineups are great. Rabbit Junk just was last night. It'll be 2 weeks ago by the time everybody hears it, but great stuff. It's Dickens YYC. Donate to it if you really like what you're watching. It'll help keep that pub going through this crisis. So lots of small business suffering. You can catch Words and Pictures. I plugged it earlier. You can buy our product at wandp.ca. Lots of other redirects as well, wordsandpictures.com, but wandp.ca, and we're putting new comics up there all the time, new stuff and old stuff if you're a fan of Bronze Age, Silver Age, and we're going to be putting up, there's some horror stuff on there. We're going to try to be the most unique voice in comics on the web. So check us out, and we will ship anywhere in Canada and the US right now. Sorry for our fans out overseas. We don't have that in place as of yet. And check out, if you're a big video game fan, check out videogametraders.ca as well, and they do lots of mail order and stuff as well. They've been hard hit through this crisis, and they had to shrink their locations down, so they've actually suffered some closures, but they still have their big main store, and they have a ton of product, and Jeff got a lot of his movies through them, so lots of stuff there, so go check it out, videogametrader.ca. Now, This has been a very personal journey for us. I kind of wanted to do this. It was Trish's idea, and I'm like, man, this could be good because it is a personal thing for each and every one of us, and then each and every one of you, our listeners. So if you want to share what you've been watching during these tough times, and we've gotten some nice feedback that our podcast has been helping you get through this tough time as well, and it really warms my heart when I hear stuff like that. But what else has gotten you through this? We shared some of our movies and TV. What have you been watching? You can send us a letter. I mean, that's a little more than a tweet. So, but you can at Invasion Remake on Twitter if you want, or send us pictures on Instagram. I don't know. But probably best just to email it to us, invasionofthemake@gmail.com. Let us know what you've been watching. Share your journey with us as well, because we're all in this together, and this will help us bond with you as well. If you don't want to share what you've been watching, maybe you have a recommendation for us of something to remake. We've been getting them a lot more regularly these days, and I'm happy to see that. So keep them coming. Keep them coming, because I'm running out of ideas myself. It's taken us down some wonderful tunnels that we might not have thought of before, especially some of the older movies that have been recommended to us. It was about a month or two ago, Cade had recommended something for us, and he's got another one that he wants us to do. Well, we've already given him one, but if I don't get any more recommendations, we're going to go do his second one, because he's got some good stuff that he's throwing at me, and he's earned my trust. But if you got any recommendations, suggestions, corrections, comments, and of course, share your COVID lists with us. Again, that's invasionoftheremake@gmail.com. Share the show out with everybody. Help get more
earball
on the show by recommending it to everywhere. We're everywhere. You can find us on our social media. Our social media links are there to our Wix site, as well as our Libsyn. It's invasionofremake.libsyn.com. All the Invasion Remake episodes are on most of the podcast platforms. First 50 are missing on Spotify, but we're now on Spotify, guys. We've had enough people say, God damn it, will you get on Spotify? Yeah, we're there now. So all the new stuff's going over to Spotify as well. And we're over on YouTube as well. Not every episode is there, but check it out if for some reason you don't have any other way to listen to us. We are on YouTube, and a lot of you listen to us on YouTube. Our subscription base keeps going up over there, so bafflingly so. I guess you like the one image I put up for an hour and a half. or just have a computer near whatever you're doing. But I'm glad we can be there for you during this hard time, and we will continue pumping out episodes. We're going to be remotely going a little longer yet, but hopefully the sound change hasn't soured anybody on the show, and we'll keep giving you great content each and every week on Invasion of the Remake. That's it. I've been Jason, and for Sam, he's somewhere. He's been Sam. Yeah. He's also Sam.
And I continue to be Trish, but might also be Clem Fandango. Every time I call in, I ask if you can hear me. I don't know why I do it.
And every time I go, yes, I can hear you, Clem Fandango. Thank you, Toast of London.
I always return as Jeff Omega.
Yes, and he's become regular cast.
Yes. Yeah. We may have to take him out of the red shirt at some point.
Basically, I was trying to think the other day. I was like, semi-regular co-host, regular guest? You decide.
A recurring character.
Recurring character.
Am I Kramer?
Or you're like SNL, where we're featuring you, even though you do show up on every episode.
Yeah, like Christopher Walken. He's like somehow hosted enough times to have 2 or 3 best of DVDs.
Nice.
All right, guys. Thanks for joining us. Thanks for indulging us on our COVID special lockdown of Invasion of the Remake. We are out of here.
Gap!